Alright then. Start. Vanish into thin air. Just like a black cat disappearing into the dark night. Chapati announced as the crowd went wild with excitement when an organizer struck the gong. Under this situation, you should start again from somewhere else after 10 seconds. You can start again as many times as you want within the time limit. The time limit is 30 minutes. The team that gets the most points will be team number 1. Instantly, each competitor began searching for their opponents while doing their best not to be discovered. The first minute had passed without any significant conflict, aside from a few mistakes made by other teams. However, when Juvia found Beth of Mermaid Talons, the battle officially began. Beth used her magic, firing multiple carrots at the Rain Woman, but each one passed harmlessly through her body. Then Jaeger appeared and tried to unleash a powerful attack on her, but Lion came to the rescue and froze him before he could make a move. "You're welcome, my dear." Lion blew him a kiss, striking a dramatic pose while dodging Juvia's sharp blades of water. "Hey. Hey." The gray-haired man growled as he glared angrily at Lion. The concentration on the competition, is it going to happen? Juvia wanted to use a more powerful spell, but before she could, Narpeting appeared behind her and attacked all three of them, hitting Juvia with her drill much to her surprise, earning 3 points in the process. "What is Urza doing?" Natsu asked as he focused his attention on Urza, who was still wandering around aimlessly. "Why isn't she making a move?" "Can you see that no one has found her yet?" Lucy asked. "But this doesn't look like anyone she's found before either." The gray color indicated before looking at Naruto. "That face tells me you know what she's trying to do. Would you like to share?" "Just wait and see," Naruto smiled contentedly. Then suddenly, snow began to fall from the sky, making everyone's eyes widen in surprise. "What do we have here?" Chapati said as he looked up at the sky. "Snow falling on the city." It was Eve from Sabretooth spelling. "My Eva-kun." Jenny giggled as she rested her cheek against the palm of her hand. "PSH, does he think Mag will make us weak in the cold or something?" Jaeger asked as he looked around. "This is not it." Ichia said, "In this cold, you will see the breath of humanity. The reproductions are merely illusions. The true human will reveal itself." The new woman nodded her head. "This is the idea. I see him." The beautiful blue Pegasus mage said as he looked up from the ground, scanned the area, and shot forward, attacking every mage he encountered, scoring 3 points. Lion was undetectable. Due to his ice powers, low temperatures had no effect on him. Urza looked around for a second before closing her eyes. Then her breathing became steady, slowing down, and soon it was gone. "Hold on for a second," Eva said as he looked around. He couldn't find the strongest woman in Fairy Tail anywhere. "Where's Urza?" "She holds her breath." Laxus nodded his head. "But how long can she hold it?" Mira asked worriedly. "Last time I checked, around 2 or 3 hours, I give or take a few minutes," Naruto replied simply, making each of them scream at the collision. Everyone's doing their best, but for whatever reason, Sabretooth's Rufus and Fairy Tail's Urza haven't got a move at all. Chapati announced as he looked at the two competitors who hadn't earned a single point. "They're not catching anyone, but they're not getting caught by anyone either. This challenge is far too simple," Rufus declared as he appeared atop the tallest building in the city. "I remember it perfectly. The nuances of his movement, his steps, his magical signature. I remember everything." Memory does. Rufus began to cast his magic, causing everyone to stare at him in complete shock. Hashi Fury Oranai, on the night of fading stars. Several bolts of lightning, reminiscent of shooting stars, were unleashed in the air and struck all their opponents with great force, regardless of their positions. Even with a body of water, Juvia screamed in agony and collapsed to the ground. Team Natsu was left in shock. They saw Urza being struck by the same lightning bolt as Rufus. Narpeting managed to avoid the burst of gunfire and fired a shot in midair, directly at Rufus. "Haha, you stick out like a sore thumb." He laughed and attacked the man. However, his fist passed harmlessly through the Sabretooth mage's body. "Damn it, a reproduction. There was a memory of me enduring there." Rufus appeared behind Narpeting and raised his hand, the same meteor then striking Raven's tail mage. "I have no need for a decoy." He got them all. In an instant, he took the lead. This is the power of Rufus. This is the power of Sabretooth. The spectators shouted and cheered for Sabretooth, while their mag smiled openly with an air of smugness, glancing sideways at Fairy Tail's teams. "This challenge is not interesting at all, organizer." "Then I have no need to hide myself like this. Even if I were to be found, I wouldn't be able to hit myself. That he left me is only a memory." After Al, then suddenly, someone appeared behind him in a blurry aspect of swirling leaves, startling him along with the onlookers who were staring at him, even the members of his team. "You have been found." Urza Scarlet murmured calmly as she summoned a kunai and slashed it through his back, making him scream in agony, before she delivered a powerful kick to his spine, sending him flying down to the ground. Luckily, he was teleported away before he could hit the ground. Rufus gasped in shock as he reappeared beside Urza, who was lying on the ground. I hit her. There's no way Rufus's magic can miss a target like that, Sting shouted in the clash. Then he and everyone else screamed in the clash as the red-haired woman in front of him exploded like a bomb, sending him flying again, earning Urza another point. This is not how our reproductions work. Mito shouted in a panic, throwing his hands around haphazardly. Of course. Naruto said loudly and smugly as he raised both his hands, because this isn't your cheap reproduction. It's a shadow reproduction. Shadow reproduction? Natsu asked in amazement. You can create more shadows. Create reproductions, the brain calls. The gray color immediately corrected him, scolding him for his stupidity. And that reproduction actually managed to deceive us, Rufus, and even the Lacrima visions, into believing this is the real thing all this time. How is that even possible? Makarov murmured. In all his life, he had never witnessed such skill as before. Placing her middle finger on the tip of her kunai, Urza then swirled the kunai around before catching it in her hand, wielding it upside down. Summoning another kunai in her other hand, Urza threw herself down, free-falling before she twisted her body in the air and landed on a nearby rooftop. The moment her feet touched the ground, the red-haired kunai leaped into the building's closet, then the next, and the next. Wah! Natsu and the gray-colored one shouted dramatically as they threw both hands into the air. They had never seen Urza move like that before, and so fast and gracefully too. There are a few minor issues here and there, but basically, this is how we get around, Naruto explained with a satisfied smile. Basically? Lucy exclaimed. It was too extreme in her opinion. But the speed Urza moved, it didn't take her long to reach her first targets, Beth and Eva. Silently, they both agreed that she was a much greater threat than the other and decided to attack her simultaneously. Eva ignited a medium-sized blizzard, the White Fury, from her right palm toward Urza, but she simply rolled to the side to avoid it. Beth threw her spells and flaming carrots that flew as fast as bullets, but they barely slowed Urza down, as she could easily dodge them by moving her head and body from side to side. When she reached Beth, Urza slashed her weapons vertically, severing the siren around her torso and teleporting her away in a flash, taking another point. Instantly, she whirled around and didn't let Eva pass, who raised his hand to cast another spell. However, before he could even open his mouth to shout the spell, Urza got to him first, stepping onto her knee to climb onto his shoulder before wrapping her legs around his outstretched arm. She twisted around, hurling him to the ground with her. You're dead. Narpading shouted as he didn't let Urza pass, trying to attack her with his massive hands, but Urza had seen him coming. Before his back could touch the ground, Urza had reached in and thrown the kunai in her right hand at him. The kunai impaled himself on his right shoulder, forcing the security spell to teleport him away. The WY. Eva said, but Urza had already sat on top of him and punched him in the face. After he had been teleported away, Urza lay down and pulled her lower body up, then jumped to her feet. 4 massive petals with rows of teeth turned upside down on their inner sides and massive points on their outer sides suddenly rose from the ground around Urza and tried to close around her. Keeping a cool head, Urza placed one hand on the ground and summoned a windmill shuriken in her other hand, which she raised into the air behind her. Spinning it in her hand, Urza launched it at the petal in front of her, shrinking it in the process and opening a gap for her to jump through before 3 others could close around her. The windmill shuriken continued traveling forward and struck the spellcaster, Jaeger, who was too slow to dodge a weapon thrown with such great speed. A huge success. Mira exclaimed in amazement. I've never seen Urza fight like that before. She couldn't help but notice Naruto's reaction. This was undoubtedly the result of her training under him. I've come for you, Urza. A ripple of water appeared and swirled around Urza, and she knew instantly this was Juvia, who had transformed into her body in the water. I won't hold back, Juvia. Urza laughed as she dodged the flaming water shards of the wave. Leaping into the air and twisting her body, Urza threw her kunai at the water woman. You really know it's useless, don't do it, Juvia asked with a satisfied smile. She wasn't wearing her Sea Empress armor, but even if she had a plan to counter. If they shielded her from it, she was confident she could land a direct hit. I know. Urza smiled contentedly at the reply, forming a snake hand seal in front of her. Next time, you'll have to double check that it's thrown at you. She pointed out, and Juvia looked down. Her eyes widened in surprise as she saw the kunai float inside her body, with a strange piece of paper drawn to it. Before she could pull it out, it exploded, releasing a huge wave of electricity that pierced her body of water, which only made the attack even more effective. With a cry of pain, Juvia was teleported away. Those are basic electricity-infused explosive tags, in case you guys were wondering, Naruto explained. This was an enhanced version of the traditional explosive tag created by the gun-loving Tenten herself. Is this the basics? Lucy exclaimed again during the clash. That tag lowered Juvia's armor and could seriously hurt her in a real battle. Hold on tight, what is this? Someone screamed and pointed at the gigantic ice foot that appeared in the air directly above Urza. It then crashed down on Urza, crushing her beneath her feet. You've got your guard down. Lion Vastra said with a confident laugh. Lion, behind you. Jura shouted, but even if he could have heard him, he couldn't when one of the Urza who was walking behind him suddenly turned his head and attacked the ice mage. The ice foot disappeared, revealing a crushed wooden log where each of them thought Urza had been. What is it this time? Natsu asked impatiently, getting excited. Asa Kawarimi, the body replacement technique, Naruto replied. How is this even possible? Lucy asked in astonishment. I didn't see her do anything. High speed, Naruto replied shortly after. She hasn't changed her armor yet she still destroys her opponent's Bacchus, another muscular man and the strongest member of Team Cerberus 4th, said with a lazy laugh, as expected of a fine woman. With that, he removed a gourd from his belt, put it to his mouth, and began to drink. After running for several blocks, Urza located Rufus, who had just taken 2 points from Narpading and Beth. In an instant, she had him right in her sights, ready to take him down. Make sure you remember because this is the power of the fairy tale. She shouted and slashed. Without taking a second glance, Urza turned and went to find her next targets. An incredible. Is this the true strength of the guild that was stronger 7 years ago? The roar of the stadium rose to a fever pitch, with shouts and applause of admiration. With her amazing and flawless performance, Urza had turned the crowd behind Fairy Tail. The more they booed, the more they cheered for Fairy Tail, for Urza and Chapati, the announcer irritated them even more. This is the end of the first round, everyone. Scarlet Urza has mastered Hidden. This victory no one can complain about this. The cheers have to stop. Urza-chan's the very best. Miliana exclaimed with a wide smile, while Kagura, who was standing next to her, calmly looked at Urza. This is Ichiya-sen's bride for you. Hibiki sighed with a nervous laugh, I should have expected this. Jura clapped her hands, laughing. What amazing skills. Simply magnificent. So this is Fairy Tail Orga, and the saber-tooth wizards looked less enthusiastic than the others as Rufus limped off the sand. I don't like this one at all. Urza was imposing. Lucy exclaimed happily as Urza made her way towards them. Fight with those skills later. Natsu grinned toothily. So, what do you think? Urza asked, looking at Naruto. You could have done better. Urza frowned when he said that. But it was good work. He winked, making Urza laugh heartily. Ah, thank you, sensei. With that, the results were announced. Team Fairy Tail A took the lead, with Sabretooth following closely behind. Lamia the Scale and Team Fairy Tail B secured 3rd and 4th place, respectively, while Blue Pegasus captured 5th. Mermaid Talon, Cerberus in 4th, and Raven Tail rounded out the bottom 3. Wow, Fairy Tail, wow. Mavis exclaimed earnestly and excitedly along with the rest of the guild as the announcements came in. Now, if you'll excuse me, Chapati cleared his throat to the hushed crowd, you're going to look at the battle system. A hologram appeared in the air, showing the phosphorescent tall figures. The first matchups have been decided by the organizers themselves. I hope there are some interesting matchups, Yazima commented. The first round on the first day, please welcome Naruto Uzumaki of Team Fairy Tail and Bacchus Grow of Cerberus 4th. The crowd cheered. They knew how powerful Bacchus was, and while they knew nothing about Naruto, after Urza's amazing performance, they were all eager to see another Fairy Tail mage in action. Am I first, huh? Bacchus asked with a satisfied confident smile. Perfect. Ah. Naruto's first. Mavis squealed with excitement as the fairy team members clapped their hands, cheering for Naruto. I'm so exciting. Seriously? Naruto grunted before sighing anxiously, his head falling. Ah well, it's too late to back away now. Better go with the flow. The better, Naruto. Lucy encouraged Naruto as he stood up and turned to leave. Yes, yes. Show him hell, Naruto. Natsu and Gray acclaimed, laughing like two maniacs, throwing their right hands in the air. Good luck, sensei. Urza called after him, before adding such a strong, but you won't need it, it's coming to you. Naruto didn't say anything in response, just waving his hand. In time, he went to the arena. Bacchus had already gotten there long before, who clearly didn't want to take him seriously. He lay on the ground, with a bored expression on his face. Wow, Naruto-kun. Look, cheered along with the rest of Fairy Tail. You're Urza's teacher, right? Bacchus asked, shaking his gourd around. Then you must be stronger than her. He pointed his hand at Naruto, his smug smile still on his face. But tell me what, you don't look good to me. What's your point? Naruto asked, raising an eyebrow. I can easily beat him. He declared. However, to make my victory all the sweeter, like the wine inside this gourd, I want to have a little fun. He then turned to face Naruto again. How about we make a bet? Interesting. Naruto nodded his head with a small, satisfied smile. He never backed down when this came into the game. Well, what do you want then? Your guild has some real claim to beauties there. Bacchus smiled with broad satisfaction. You're Urza's teacher, and you look pretty facing off against a beauty Marahan. If I win, you lend them to me for one night, both of you immediately. Instantly, the fairy tale members roared in anger, while Urza and Marahan shuddered in shock at what they alone had learned. Excuse me, what? Naruto asked, his voice dropping and his eyes narrowing. What did you just say? He wasn't deaf, and he heard every word clearly. For the first time in a very long time, Naruto felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Cholera. How can he address her like that when he's challenged? Lend me the girls for one night, Urza and Marahan, both of them immediately. Bacchus repeated his previous words before continuing, they're bringing you too. So what are you going to do with them? Naruto asked. However, his voice was as cold as ice, so cold that it sent a chill down everyone's spine. Even Sayla, who was watching from a secret spot atop one of the statues around the stadium, couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Well, I'm going to have a lot of fun with them, that's for sure. My bed always had a few places just right for beautiful women like them, Bacchus declared simply. Fine then. Naruto said, giving him a hollow laugh. You win, you're free to do whatever you want with the girls. He said. But if I win, I'll break every last bone in your body. He declared cruelly, creating a heavy atmosphere around the stadium. The FFT. What? Bacchus's cheeks shot out as he tried to stifle his laughter. You're an interesting man, aren't you? Are you sure you can do this? I keep my promise. Naruto nodded sharply. Urza, what is his magic? How can he be so confident that he can hit Naruto? Gray asked, turning to Urza, who had fought him multiple times in the past. His magic type is one that focuses magical energy into his hands. This is relatively orthodox magic, Urza said in a serious tone as Beiko stood up and assumed a fighting stance. However, the secret of his strength is his mastery of a martial art that allows him to use that magic to its fullest potential. This is called Hakasho, the hanging/fist. This is a martial art that uses special stances to make the particularly effective use of palm strikes. But what is even more alarming is that he added some improvements to this and created a drunken hanging/fist. Drunk as with a drink, you mean? Gray asked. Yes. It's impossible to predict the drunken hawk's attacks. Urza nodded. On top of that, his destructive power is also enhanced, which is part of the key to his victory. He's certainly gotten much stronger than he was 7 years ago. Urza then pointed the gourd at the ground. Even more so, it seems he's decided to fight Naruto without drinking a single drop of alcohol. Is he still taking this fight seriously? Lucy asked, shocked. Urza just shook her head in response. A night's sleep with those girls, how wonderful, said Bacchus, still wearing a satisfied smile. As soon as the gong struck, Cerberus the fourth mage leaped forward and blamed Naruto, his fingers clasped together, sucking on his head. However, before he could deliver a strike, Naruto shot his weapon and grabbed Beiko by the neck. He lifted the man into the air and then slammed him back down to the ground before kicking him in the stomach, sending him back to where he had been lying just moments before. You're stronger than I thought, Bacchus said as he rose from the ground. My soul trembles. Ignoring his confiding words, Naruto turned Mato around and asked him. The pumpkin, are you the referee of these matches? Yes, I am. Mato nodded his head. Well, I want you to promise that you won't stop this fight no matter what. Each gasped in shock at his demand. Mato wasn't sure how to answer and he looked rather uneasy. I'm fine with it, Bacchus said as he picked up his gourd from the ground. He had to change his strategy. Naruto was faster than he thought. I lose and he'll break my bones sooner or later, so I wait. This is a promise between men, after all. He drank the wine, gulping down the entire gourd. Drunk, his movements became unsteady and the smug grin on his face became more disarming than ever. He then took a stance and charged at Naruto with greater speed than before. Okay, I promise. Mato nodded. This is all I need. With that cold declaration, all hell broke loose. Bacchus tried to strike Naruto's cheek with his palm, but the blonde simply raised his hand, grabbing the drunken mage's wrist and stopping him. He then moved his head to the side, dodging the second aimed strike to the other side of his head, before cultivating his other hand, placing it on the back of Bacchus's elbow, and pulling. HHHH. The entire stadium gasped at the clash and fell silent in agony as Naruto snapped Beiko's left arm, causing the mage to scream in pain. Releasing his wrist, Naruto then joined his hand with Beiko's, intertwining their fingers before tightening his grip. The bones in his fingers and hand twisted and snapped like toothpicks under his strength. By the time Naruto had balled his hand into a fist, Beiko's hand was completely useless. Have fun with this, Naruto growled as he thrust forward, quickly punching Beiko in the face. The more muscular mage tried to get him with a hook strike, but Naruto shot his other hand, answering back with his own punch. Eiko screamed as the bones in his right hand shattered the moment it made contact with Naruto's punch. His right elbow and the bones in his right arm also endured tremendous force and accustomed to the process. Naruto released his hand and sent a barrage of 20 punches into Beiko's chest in less than 2 seconds, breaking all 24 ribs he had inside him, before delivering a palm strike to the middle of his chest, pushing him back several feet. "Here, drink this," Naruto growled as he ran forward, using his foot to kick Bacchus's gourd into the air. Naruto then grabbed the gourd and shoved it into Bacchus's open mouth, before jumping and kneeling under his chin, forcing his mouth shut and breaking the gourd and a few teeth in the process. With his weapons rendered completely useless, Beiko tried to give up, but Naruto wouldn't let him and continued his assault. He kicked the man on his right knee so hard that he broke it, causing the lower half of Beiko's leg to bend ridiculously forward as he fell, screaming in pain. Not stopping there, Naruto did the same to his other leg, kicking it so hard that his bones were snapped in half with a single attack. Beiko, at this moment, could barely remain conscious. He was experiencing immense pain. Naruto had broken all his ribs and bones inside his limbs, but his attacks were so precise that he hadn't inflicted any external wounds. "Let this be a warning to you, trash," Naruto said as he picked up Beiko's limp body by the neck, because next time, it won't just be his bones. Releasing him, Naruto then leaped into the air and delivered a locomotive-sized roundabout kick to the side of Beiko's face, sending him flying across the field like a lifeless rag doll. He slammed hard into the wall, breaking his spine, neck, and the back of his skull in the process. Seeing that he wasn't going to get up, Mato controlled as fast as his short legs could to carry him to the man to make sure he was still alive. The pumpkin thanked the god, "He's alive. Doctor." The pumpkin shouted after feeling his pulse, which was weak but still there. In the end, Naruto didn't have to hold back that much to ensure he wouldn't kill the man. As a weapon in the mage fight, he possessed dense muscles and well-trained stamina. A normal human would never survive that kind of damage. The doctors appeared and quickly placed him on a cart to take him away. After the doctors had finally left the arena, Mato then turned to face Naruto, nervously stammering. The crowd was also too stunned to make a sound. Even Chapati and 2 other announcers were mute and didn't know what to announce. "I guess the winner of this match is Naruto Uzumaki." Instantly, the crowd erupted in excitement, chanting Naruto's name and fairy tales. The immortal shinobi almost chuckled when he realized how excited they were, the humans. "Give them blood and they'll be wild." "Human," Sayla muttered as he looked at the crowd with a disgusted look on his face. "The era may change, nations may disappear. But humanity will never change. They would never change." The rest of the first day of the Grand Magic Games was quiet and rather less exciting for everyone because they were performing reliably. Sabretooth gained 10 points after Organonagir destroyed Crow's Tail Flare with a single blast of his god-killing magic. Lamia the Scale had secured a victory over Fairy Tail Team B when Jura defeated Mystigan, Akagel. Unfortunately for the blue-haired man, he was harassed by Altier and Merity. Blue Pegasus claimed 4th place when the new Akatsuki defeated Arena Web of Mermaid Talon. "Man, this shit was dark," Natsu commented as he looked at Naruto's match recorder on a Lacrima recorder. "Ah. This is disgusting." He crestfallen when he heard another cracking sound. "Great job, Naruto." He grinned broadly, giving the blonde a thumbs up. After the end of the first day of the magnificent magic game, both fairy teams went to visit Wendy and Carla to make sure she was alright. Before heading to the nearest bar in Saffron Town, with Konda being the one sitting inside when they arrived, it certainly wasn't a surprise. Yeah, Naruto said lazily, waving his hand dismissively at Natsu. "For a moment, I thought you were about to kill him right there. I was so worried you might overreact, but it turns out you knew exactly what you were doing." The third master of fairy tales said before the uprising, propping his beer mug above his head, "So, let us give a good thrashing to Naruto who fought to protect our guild's flowers. Anyone else, besides Urza of Team A, would have failed and left our girls falling into the hands of that lecherous bastard." Naruto groaned as the fairy tale members roared in agreement. "Damn old man. What do you mean by this?" Natsu, Grey Color, and Lucy shouted at the same time. "But you have to admit this. You can't defeat Urza, let alone someone as strong as she was." Pill joked, causing Natsu and the gray-colored one to glare at him with malevolent eyes. "So, go do it." Each held their drinks before the master declared, to Naruto. "To Naruto." The entire guild shouted in unison. "This is for you, Naruto-kun." Mira appeared at his table and placed a cup of beer in front of him. "It's on me." "Fine, thanks," Naruto said as he leaned forward and picked up the beer mug. "You know this isn't the bar in the guild, right?" He looked at her and took a sip of his drink. "Okay, I can be your waitress tonight." Mira winked playfully, twirling her finger around a strand of her gray hair. "Do you have a problem with this?" The intimidating sound, "Then I'm fine with this." Naruto shrugged, laughing at her. "Anyway, I want to thank you, Naruto-kun," Mira said with a soft laugh. Just like Master said, if it weren't for you, I'd have to follow Bacchus back to his place. No, not that I have any problem with it, but it seems you still have so little faith in your friends. Naruto teased, I thought guys were all about trusting each other. This isn't that I. Don't worry, I was just joking. Naruto shook his head, making Mira frown, and also, you're welcome. Anyway, I'll see you later then, Naruto-kun. I need to get my team back to discuss our strategy. Mira said, turning to the side and gesturing to her teammates, you need to find a way to save your team somehow, as we're supposed to be the elite team here and we're so far behind you guys. She walked away, muttering the last part to herself. Try your best then, Naruto called after her, before glancing at the seat they were heading towards. The laughter vanished from his face as he glared angrily at that person with half-up eyes. What? He pressed hard, are you doing here? Ah, I thought you'd be happy to see me. Mavis Vermilion pouted cutely as she kicked her legs back and forth. The ghost that stays a few feet away from its grave is a bad one. Naruto finished his cup of beer. You really know my body. Naruto was interrupted, but she continued in a low tone, holding his hand to her cheek. Isn't it inside my grave, right? This still doesn't change the fact that you're a ghost. You know what people call a talking spirit that stays out of a body? A freaking ghost. He raised his hands and waved them up and down in front of his face, saying hauntingly, "Ooh of ghosts. Would you lower it?" Mavis wanted to swat his hands away, but his hands simply passed by hers. He could touch her, but unfortunately for Mavis, this didn't work any other way around. Anyway, I see you've made a lot of friends around here, good for you. Friends? Nah, more like colleagues apart from Urza, of course, she's my student. Speaking of Urza, here she comes. They both turned their heads to the side and saw Urza walking towards them, holding 2 empty cups and a bottle of beer in her hands. I'll leave 2 of you alone, you know where to find me. She said before getting up and walking away. Good evening Master Mavis. Urza bowed her head to Fairy Tail's first master. How are you? I'm fine, thank you. Good work today, you make me proud. Urza lowered her head and laughed gratefully. The short-haired blonde then gave Urza a wink as she gestured her head toward Naruto. Have fun with him, okay? Thank you Master Mavis. With that, Urza continued on her way to Naruto and asked him when she reached his table, may I sit with you, sensei? Make yourself comfortable then, said Naruto, holding his hand and pointing to the seat in front of him. Urza sat down and they put down the cups, placing one of them on the bottle before opening it. So what does this have to do with you? They're getting tainted. He looked at the rest of the guild, who were celebrating Team A's flawless victory. Don't you want to play with them? Yes, but I also want to thank my teacher, who fought for me today. She filled her cup before moving to hers. If not you, I'd have to follow Bacchus. Look, he came and said the same thing, so I would tell him exactly what I said to him, that you are welcome. He picked up his cup and laughed. I also want to properly congratulate you on your victory today, so claim. The claim. Urza laughed and tapped her cup with hers. They both took a long drink before setting down their cups. You know, well I appreciate what you do for me, I don't think it's necessary for you to break all his bones like that. If I am not mistaken, then there are 2,000 different ways you can humiliate him, right? You really didn't want to know how she knew this. Yes, but I really don't want to humiliate him this time. I want to hurt him badly. He tapped his knuckle on the table before continuing, and before you get the wrong idea, no, I didn't do it for you. He demanded you and Mira for a night and wanted to make a bet with me about it, which could only mean he had no respect for women. Pretty much, this is an insult to both of you. Naruto continued, now we're talking about the student-teacher relationship. You insult the student, you insult the teacher's teachings. You insult my teachings, you're basically insulting me, and everyone. He pointed at him. So I couldn't take it lightly and I decided to teach him a lesson. Urza looked at him, blinking several times before the refrain with a small laugh while looking at her drink. You know, Mira, she told me that when you were reasoning about something, especially when the reasons didn't make any sense at all, you were really just trying to keep up that tough guy act, that cool boy attitude, and that badass persona of someone who didn't give a damn about those around him, well in reality you were one of the nicest people in this business. The F did she really tell him this? Naruto asked in disbelief, turning his head to look at Mira, who caught him staring and waved her hand at him with a bright laugh. What's with that woman? He couldn't help but wonder. Well, you know what, she's a badass then. She also said that you would instantly try to defend yourself when you were exposed. Everything she told me so far has proven true, so. Well. Urza laughed softly and Naruto simply grumbled in response. You know. When she said you were one of the kindest people, it really meant a lot to me because these people, they're the most kind-hearted people I've ever known. My family. She stated gently, I guess this makes you more than just my teacher now, sensei. More than just a teacher, huh? Naruto asked, chuckling quietly. Family. I think so. Urza laughed as she leaned forward. You act like a very strict father sometimes, sensei. Father? As Urza said, that word was hard to take more than once after everything that had happened. He did not stay with the guild that night and left before midnight to find Sayla. The next morning was the beginning of the second day of the Magnificent Magic Game. The Magnificent Magic Games have finally entered their second day of competition, Chapati said. He was wearing a new wig on his head, the hair reaching down to his shoulders. What kind of fierce drama will we be able to witness today? The magician Saint Yazima laughed. He, much like everyone else, was impatient to see what would happen during the second day of the biggest magical event of the year. The competition on the second day is the Jaleo, Chapati announced loudly. There will be one participant from each guild. Yosh, I'm all fired up. Natsu punched a hole in his palm and smiled openly and sadistically. This is my comeback. So I'm going to leave those bastards in the dust and widen the gap between us. Sue yourself. The gray color nodded its head. However, before he could do it everywhere, Naruto grabbed the back of his scarf and pulled him back. The pitiful child, but his time has not yet come. Naruto said humorously as he took a step forward. I'll go. Hey. What the hell, man? Natsu asked amid the collision. Strategically wise, this is my chance to save myself from all the trouble of this tournament for the next couple of days. He turned and explained, I already participated in a match yesterday. There are 5 of us. This magnificent magical game is going to last for 5 days, so unless they want this tournament to be a simple spectacle of fighting, they won't call me again. Also, I've decided to participate in this game because I don't have to fight in the first event again, and you'll all have your chances with them, right? Well, it's pretty fair. The gray-haired boy nodded his head in understanding, while Natsu grumbled in annoyance that he was dying to fight someone. From Fairy Tail Team B, Kana volunteered for this event. She was the team's reserve and was there today to substitute for Gel. Well, he was much stronger than the alcoholic woman because the guest for the second day was Leher, a member of a magic council and also the captain of the custodian execution squad. He couldn't participate. Cerberus IV sent a fellow named Novali, while Miliana of Siren Talon stepped up her pace for the fight after gaining approval from their leader, Kagura. Juranikas represented Lamia Scale, while Hibiki would head out for Blue Pegasus, while from Sabretooth, Orga made her way down to the arena with a satisfied confident smile on her face. Crowtail sent Abra, a mysterious mage with an odd-looking creature perched on her shoulders. Seeing Naruto walking into the middle of the arena, everyone cheered with excitement, while the expressions of the other teams turned serious. Based on their performance yesterday, Fairy Tail had proven to be a force to be reckoned with, but Naruto Uzumaki was probably the stronger of both teams. Seriously, do I have to fight him? Kana asked, laughing nervously behind her back. Naruto just smiled contentedly at her response. After the competitors had gathered around Mado, he laughed and waved his hand around. Alright everyone, I'll explain how the Jaleo works. A mass of magical power suddenly burst from the ground and formed a giant malevolent-looking castle, causing everyone to gasp and widen their eyes in surprise. Mado pointed at it before saying, this is the temple where evil monsters nest. This is the Jaleo. It's huge. Kana shouted at the crash. Imposing. Miliana couldn't stand either. Analysis beginning. Hibiki murmured, activating her archive with a laugh and beginning to analyze the place with her magic. While Novali murmured, sweating and covering her face, feeling so confident about it. Orga, meanwhile, looked up at it with disinterest. Did Jura take a look at Mado, where monsters nest you say? Mado brushed his head before continuing. This is the setting Kabo. Inside the temple, there are 100 monsters. Well, we call them that, but they're really just magical instruments we created. They won't chase the audience or anything, so don't worry. His words calmed the now nervous crowd. Mado continued, the monsters are divided into 5 battle classes. D, C, B, A, and S. With concrete game data like this. By the way, in greeting to how powerful Class D monsters are. A bursting lacrima scream lifts a camera inside the temple, where a massive hound-like creature growled and didn't let a stone statue pass, easily destroying it in one blow. The crowd recoiled at the sight as Mado continued, these and even stronger ones. The ones where 100 of them are lying in wait, this is the Jaleo Kabo. The Class S monster is so powerful that even one of the Mage Saints cannot be guaranteed to defeat it. Lucy and Wendy looked hard, but Natsu swore through gritted teeth, damn it. I should have dealt with this. You want to go on top of that monstrosity? Lucy shrieked in shock. Mado continued, stop, each of you will take turns selecting a number of monsters to fight. This is called your challenge, right? For example, if a person selects 3 monsters, then that's how many will be featured in the temple. If that person succeeds in defeating them, then he or she gets 3 points, and the next competitor enters and gets to choose from the remaining 97 monsters. This will continue until all the monsters are defeated or until everyone's magical power reaches zero, at which point the competition will end. Liliana laughed, so, this feels like a counting game. Mado nodded, exactly. Circumstantial judgment becomes important. Remember, monsters have rows, but no matter how many monsters you choose, the rows are always arbitrary. If you're extremely unlucky, you might choose 2 and the ending raises the class of S. Hibiki glanced at her spelling file, so some kind of battle strategy to avoid drawing the class S monster is necessary. If it's arbitrary, that strategy won't work. Orga dismissed with a snort. Hibiki shook his head, not exactly. With probability theory and my archive, the strategy will work to some extent. Mado held his hands, you earn points for the number of monsters defeated, regardless of their row. Once you enter, you cannot leave until you have either won or been defeated. If you happen to fall inside the temple, the number of points you have earned up to that turn will remain as they are. The number of wins for that turn, however, will be counted as 0, and you will leave as such. So it's bad to be too greedy then, Pantalili concluded in a serious tone. Yes, but you pick one monster per lap and everyone else will overtake you, right? Happy asked. There's also a lot of strategy and calculation to understand, Carla said as she scratched her head with her paw. How many monsters you'll have to face and how much energy you replenish waiting for your next turn. It's difficult to do suddenly, Romeo commented nervously. And with that, a box full of sticks then appeared in Mado's hands, which he offered, please draw your parts, each one. The competitors did so, and a number appeared above the sticks as they were drawn. Lucky me. Naruto grinned broadly as he looked at the number 1 on his stick. You're so lucky, Naruto. This will come back to haunt you. She said, laughing ironically. She got the last point. I thought this whole competition would come down to the luck of drawing, the blonde boy said with a small sigh as he took a step forward. The luck of the draw. Mado couldn't help but sweat as he dropped his statement. No, not like I put this. This is a game where maintaining your pace and situational judgment are more important than just the battle order. Mado tried to explain, but Naruto ignored him. Don't worry, he then slashed his throat. I'm going to finish this shit. I challenged the 100 monsters. Almost everyone in the stadium was stunned, according to their statement. Some of them were still gasping in shock and stared at Naruto in their daze. I really shouldn't expect anything less from him. Urza laughed, shaking her head. She would have done the same if she were the one representing her team. Mado tried to stop her as Naruto continued making his way up the tower. That's impossible, Kabo. It wasn't designed so that one person could possibly defeat them all. I look like I'm worried, Naruto called out and the door was closed behind him. Oi oi. Is he going to be alright? Makarov asked worriedly as Naruto appeared above the lacrima visions around the stadium. Don't worry, Mavis smiled mysteriously with satisfaction and didn't want to spoil anything else after this. Naruto soon arrived at a huge arena. Hey, Urza, he suddenly called his students' names instead of stating his challenge. This surprised each of them. Urza, can you hear me right now? Just speak because I can still hear you from here. Of course, sensei. Lacrima visions have been activated. She replied. Okay. I want you to look closely. He looked around, observing the area. Today, we're going to test your observation and calculation skills. Seriously, right now I don't think it's the exact time to. Closed and listen to your teacher. Naruto interrupted and she immediately did as she was told. He then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small scroll. I want you to watch me closely because I'm going to show you the technique and its variations, something that made my good old days take down one of the most powerful shinobi in history. Urza gasped in shock. She knew her first teacher was strong, but she had no idea he was among the strongest. Naruto then unrolled the scroll and touched the seal in the middle with his hand, summoning a very strange-looking kunai. It had 3 blades instead of 1 and several black words written on the white handle. Naruto then picked up the kunai and held it horizontally in front of him. They don't call this technique Hiraishin no Jutsu. He said seriously, the Flying Thunder God technique. Damn, that's a badass name. Gray said, and Naruto nodded his head in agreement before the refrain with excitement. I want the one. He then turned to Urza and asked in the clash, what are you wearing? The scarlet-haired mage was wearing black crystals. The crystals, they help me think, okay. She raised her hand and summoned a small notebook and pen. Don't look at me like that. I have to write everything down. Trust me because this is going to be really hard. She said as each of them, even Combine the Bee, turned their heads to look at her. Just watch me and tell me how this works at the end of the day. This technique is too difficult for your level because after all this is the S row. Bro S. Urza shouted in the crash, almost dropping her notebook. What does he mean? Row of S. Gajil asked, confused. Does this mean this is one of the techniques of the most powerful ninja? That's right. Urza nodded, readjusted her crystals, and began explaining to each of them, unlike magic, ninjutsu or ninja arts is classified into ranks, from the weakest, Class E techniques, to the most powerful of all. Class S. Class E techniques are the most basic and fundamental for every ninja, like Kawarimi, while Class S is at an extreme level. The difficulty of ninjutsu also increases with its ranks. Some Class E techniques can be learned in less than a day, while most Class S techniques can take a lifetime to truly master, unless you are a genius or have a natural talent for it. The HHH. Does this mean you don't know any first-class techniques? Lucy asked. I know an A-class, but this took me 3 whole weeks to learn. Urza shook her head, making everyone's eyes widen in astonishment. Also, I've never seen him perform any A-class techniques before. My challenge is 100 monsters. Naruto's call drew everyone's attention back to the scene. Monsters of various shapes and sizes appeared and began to slowly advance from every corner of the area before they began to stalk Naruto as they stalked weak prey. 3 Class D monsters lunged at Naruto, who simply threw the kunai at them. They looked harmless and they moved aside without a problem. What the? Urza and the other mages gasped in shock as the Class D monsters fell lifeless to the ground when Naruto suddenly vanished from his position and reappeared behind them, catching his kunai in his hand. How did he do this? They were certain he didn't teleport because no one could teleport from one place to another and bring down a group of monsters standing in the middle like that. In a brief moment, all they saw was a yellow flash. Naruto smiled with satisfaction before spinning his kunai around in his hand. Let the game begin. End of chapter 11. Chapter 12. Let the game begin. With that declaration, Naruto shot forward with blurry speed, slashing the kunai in his hand ruthlessly, but with great accuracy, reducing the Class D monsters that attempted to thrust at him from every direction, leaving them in 2 or 3 pieces before they exploded into several clouds of smoke and disappeared. The C-class monster roared and seized the opportunity just as Naruto was crushing 5 D-class monsters under his foot to attack him. The C-class monsters were 10 times larger than their lower-class counterparts and definitely far more powerful. They wore dark crimson armor instead of white and had massive mouths filled with razor-sharp teeth, each as large as a fully grown man. Without turning around, Naruto stretched his right arm out to the side and snapped his fingers, launching his weapon away. It impaled itself on another C-class monster before he vanished in a flash of yellow and reappeared in less than a fraction of a second, directly next to the second monster. There, he delivered a devastating stomp to the top of its head, sending its face crashing to the ground. Using the counter-force of his attack, Naruto spun around and launched himself back at the first one. Summoning a pair of windmill shuriken in his hands, Naruto then hurled them at the beast, severing its head cleanly from its body. How? How? Natsu asked in disbelief, pointing both of his hands at Naruto. How can something as small as a cut such a massive head? Look at his kunai. Urza pointed, and everyone's eyes focused on the blades of Naruto's kunai, which had the faint almost imperceptible blue halo, shaped like a short sword, around them. He infused them with his chakra to sharpen the blade and increase its range, like a sword, and then he really slashed with power, Urza replied before writing it down in her notebook, noticing everything her teacher did. When she realized everyone was looking at her, Urza rolled her eyes and continued, basically, he increased his cutting power and generally extended his range with his energy, which is also how he was able to cut through Class D monsters with just a small kunai, got it? Ah, so why didn't you just say tan? The young Kunoichi wanted to faceap him when Natsu asked that question. Is this the best you can do? Naruto provoked as he landed on the needle in midair, looking left, right, down, and over him with piercing eyes and a smug grin on his face. I've fought much scarier common ground than you pieces of shit, you know. He continued, recalling Tora the cat and his difficult days with that damned creature from hell. Does he still take this seriously? Makarov asked, crossing his weapons over his chest. Who knows? Mavis Vermilion stated softly as she watched Naruto fighting another group of 10 Class A monsters and 1 C-class monster, with nothing but small kunai and his immense physical strength, something that amazed and impressed everyone at the same time. In just half a minute since the beginning, Naruto had reduced the number of Class A monsters by half and the number of C-class monsters by 3. The fight continued as Naruto was attacked by 5 C-class monsters simultaneously. However, instead of fighting as before, Naruto stabbed his kunai into the ground and leaped into the air before summoning 6 more Flying Thunder, God kunai with his magic. Naruto swiftly grabbed them, holding them between his fingers before launching 5 kunai at the monsters below him. The kunai pierced their armor, penetrated their heads, and flew out of their jaws, killing the monsters instantly. As the weapons pierced the earth, Naruto vanished and flashed down to the ground. However, that moment lasted no more than a tenth of a second, as Naruto had already disappeared even before the Lacrima visions focused on him could be alerted. Urza blinked at the shock and tried her best to save her momentum, but she would only get to see him once as he stood and kicked a monster in the air before chasing after it to deliver the killing blow with the same if not even greater speed than what he had been using, the only difference being that there was no flash of yellow. Not only Urza, but everyone around the stadium found it difficult to keep track of Naruto's attacks. They didn't dare blink because they didn't want to miss any of it, but no matter how hard they tried, they could only see a quick lightning-like flash that traveled across the battlefield inside the Jaleo, hitting every Class D monster before it left, its body trailing behind. Those who could no longer keep up stared at the right screen, which displayed the number of monsters left in the arena, and gasped in shock when they saw how many Class D monsters were dropping faster than they could track them. The moment the number was dropped to reset to 0 was also the moment Naruto stopped and appeared in front of them. He's defeated the entire Class D, Chapati announced, trying to pick his jaw up from the ground, unaware that the wig he was wearing was slowly slipping down his bald head. The C-class attack then charged at Naruto, but without needing to turn, Naruto threw the kunai behind his back before vanishing and reappearing behind the monster with the weapon in his hand, forgetting the faint after-image of the weapon's blades, which ran all the way from its head to its tail, made when he slashed the monster at extreme speed. I can't even remember how he did this. Rufus, the person who had been defeated at Urza Scarlet's hands the day before, murmured nervously as he witnessed his teacher's true power. He could never remember something his eyes had failed to follow. Then suddenly, he was struck by a huge fireball coming straight at him, but before anyone could ask if this was the end, the fire was taken away. You called that fire? Naruto, who looked completely unharmed, tilted his head back, sighing in a manner very familiar to the fairy tale members. Oi oi. Don't tell me that. Natsu shouted. No way. Impossible. Fire release. Great fireball jutsu. Naruto shouted and unleashed a large fireball from his mouth, which instantly engulfed the C-class monsters, taking them away in a massive explosion. Bastard. How am I supposed to be the one who breathes fire? You stole my technique. Natsu shouted furiously, throwing both hands into the air as smoke billowed from his head. No, Natsu, I didn't, Naruto said as he stomped his foot on the ground, using his magic to create a rock wall to block several fireballs. He then placed his hand on the ground and made several spikes erupt from the earth that impaled half a dozen monsters in front of him through their bodies. That technique was created a long time ago, even before the first dragon was born, so it's you fire lizards who violated our copyright. Natsu just snorted in response. And a ninja breathed fire too. Lucy turned to Urza and asked. This is actually a fire ninjutsu, or in our language, ninja technique. The mage nodded. Kaiten, in the ancient language, literally means fire release, while Gakakyu ninjutsu means great fireball technique. So ancient shinobi speak a different language? Lucy asked with interest. She wasn't trying to force it, but she enjoyed learning new things. Do you have to learn it too? This was tough, but I've managed to grasp the basics, literally. So there must be a release of wind, a release of water, etc. Urza nodded her head. Naruto then dodged an attack from a C-class monster and unleashed several blades of wind that sliced through several B-class monsters in front of him like butter, swiftly ending their short lives. 4 giant rocking pillars then erupted from the ground, immobilizing 4 gigantic C-class monsters before generating lightning between them, dealing massive damage before slaughtering them. Will you actually use ninjutsu without hand seals? Urza asked in surprise, her eyes nearly popping out of their sockets. She'd heard about it from him, but this was actually the first time she'd seen him do it. Yes, and don't worry, this is still too early for you to be thinking about something like that. Naruto grinned broadly as he blew another gigantic fireball at the monsters, killing them instantly. Just how powerful is he? Sting, the white dragon slayer, asked in disbelief, nervous sweat pouring down his forehead. While his partner, Rogue, remained impassive as ever, his eyes widened slightly, showing a hint of shock. The twin dragon slayers had never seen or even heard of anyone like him before. This isn't right at all. Orga clicked his tongue worriedly. He, who had the power to kill a god, wasn't yet sure if he could really handle Naruto Uzumaki, whose speed was simply inhuman. Such power and confidence. Yukino Iguria, the beautiful, busty young woman with light-colored hair and dark brown eyes, murmured as she gazed at Naruto. He not only fought with astonishing skill and strength, but also with a confidence she had never seen in anyone. If only she possessed that kind of confidence. He made his senses so small and so timid. But there are still many monsters left behind, and all of them are far more powerful than these he has defeated, Laxa said as he crossed his weapons over his chest. He can take down D-class and C-class monsters, but what about the higher class monsters? Gajeel nodded his head in agreement, thinking that Naruto would surely have a tough time dealing with the more powerful monsters, especially the A-class and the S-class that had yet to appear. Come on, people. Naruto suddenly shouted as he raised both hands above his head. This place gets way too lively. Give me some noise. Instantly, the crowd cheered and began chanting Naruto's name. The magicians began to look at the audience, amazed by their reactions to his call. Now this is more like it. Naruto smiled contentedly. The master. Sayla said, laughing softly as she watched her master struggling from his secret spot. This was the first time in over 400 years that she had seen him enjoying anything so much before. The applause, the shouts, the monsters who didn't run away the moment they saw him, they weren't designed to do this, they revealed a side of him she had never seen before and had only heard stories of from his past. However, this was also the first time she had seen him be so reckless. Giving his name, exposing even a tiny bit of his powers, attracting so much attention, increasing his popularity, making famous. This was going to take him a long time, probably no less than 2 or 3 decades, to tighten all the loose ends and disappear from the world again. Even so, she was happy to see her master having fun. As the 15th Class B monster was taken down by Naruto, a new type of monster appeared. This one, however, matched the preceding monsters but stood tall on its hind legs, had blue scales resembling armor, limbs larger than its own body, a long tail with a spiked tip, and a fiery mouth. The energy inside its mouth shone brighter, and with a thunder-like roar, it fired a beam of energy at Naruto, which disappeared and reappeared on the other side of the battlefield in an instant, causing the monster's attack to hit the ground harmlessly. Laser beam, seriously? Is this the best you can come up with? Naruto said mockingly before leaping into the air, cultivating his hand above his head and creating a Rasengan, which then dramatically increased in size upon impact. As he reached its maximum height, Naruto then slammed the Rasengan into the monster's chest, shattering its armor in an instant before he could detonate it, scattering the monster's remains far away, spinning like a pinwheel within a massive vortex. This crashed into the Jaleo with such force that the wall behind it collapsed before it could dissipate. So? Natsu gasped excitedly. What is this? He turned Urza around and asked in the same tone. This is the Rasengan, Urza explained. This is the strongest and only A-class technique I know. Is this the one that took him 3 weeks to learn? Lucy asked in amazement. This is right, just a little different. Urza offered her hand and created a Rasengan, but it was only slightly larger than her hand. They were identical, only the sizes were different. I'm still working on the larger version, but anyway, I had no idea a Rasengan could get this big. She declared. Her visible eye widened dramatically. This is pure energy, so the more chakra you put into it, the harder it is for you to control. But is it wise to expend so much energy on a single attack, especially in a battle like this? Jiraiya asked curiously. What he could see, after observing Naruto's phosphorus technique, was that it was pure energy. How Naruto could release his energy and use it in such a way was beyond him, though. More and more monsters appeared within the chaos, and the A-class monsters soon joined the battle. They were muscular ape-like beasts with reddish fur. Their bodies were heavily clad in armor, and their heads wore samurai helmets. There were 4 of them, each twice the size of a B-class monster. The C-class and B-class began unleashing their attacks on Naruto, aiming at him from every direction. However, with a smug grin on his face, Naruto easily dodged them, moving between bursts with little to no trouble. As an A-class attempted to whip Naruto with its gigantic tail, the immortal shinobi executed a backflip, his hand positioning his scales for a split second to evade the attack, before waiting for the moment the monster's tail hit the wall to leap onto it. Rushing atop its body, Naruto created a normal-sized Rasengan, which was still far larger than Urza's Rasengan, and smashed the monster's head apart with it. Throwing his kunai to the right, Naruto flashed the Class B monster in that direction and launched several explosive tags into its mouth, which detonated the moment it mistakenly ignited the laser beam attack. Then suddenly, as soon as Naruto landed back on the ground, a massive fist shot skyward toward him from above. The attack was devastating, as the ground beneath him exploded, creating a huge cloud of dust that submerged half of the monster's arm. Ah. This is a direct hit. Chapati shouted as he leaned forward at his table announcement and looked at the Lacrima visions to make sure Naruto didn't dodge the attack by flashing away again. Naruto. The entire stadium went quiet as everyone held their breath and waited for the outcome. Hold on for a second. Leiher suddenly said as he looked at the monkey-like monster. What's wrong with the monster? Just as he said, the A-class monster that attacked Naruto was struggling, moving from side to side, while its right arm remained exactly where it was. It didn't take them long to realize that something, or rather someone, was holding its hand, preventing it from moving it around. When the dust settled, the audience was completely astonished when Naruto appeared unscathed, standing in the same spot with a serious expression on his face. His right hand held firm, gripping a hand that was much, much larger than his own without any trouble. However, what stunned everyone the most when the screen zoomed in for a close-up of her face were her eyes, which used to be sky blue, had turned yellow, with toad-like pupils and orange pigmentation around her eyes. As each of them was still reeling from this sudden turn of events, Naruto held his free rein and formed a Rasengan, which grew so large it became even bigger than the largest they had ever seen from him. Taking a step forward, Naruto then pushed the creature back despite the difference in their sizes, before leaping into the air and slamming the gigantic Rasengan into its chest. Naruto immediately detonated the Rasengan, sending the monster flying with such force that it crashed through the ceiling, or rather the floor, since the Jaleo was upside down, and continued flying until it cleared the highest point of Domus Flow before dispersing in a flash of light. Wasting no more time, the blonde calmly charged into battle. Incredible, Makarov muttered as he fell onto his end. He's finally gotten serious, hasn't he? Mavis asked with a small laugh as Naruto took down the monster one by one, or even two at the same time with ease. However, she couldn't help but wonder what he was doing and what his intentions were. Being well aware of his powers, Mavis knew he was more than capable of demolishing the Jaleo with just Rasengan, and his skills as the strongest shinobi in history, so there was no reason for him to push himself to a higher level of power to fight monsters that paled in comparison to those he had fought in the past. This was probably not part of her training. While Urza had grown much stronger as a Kunoichi under her tutelage, sage art was still beyond her comprehension. Moreover, Naruto had already assigned her a task as difficult to understand as the Flying Thunder God technique. He definitely wasn't trying to impress anyone. Maybe a girl or two knew how he usually was, but he definitely had no reason to flaunt his strength to others. It wasn't just in his nature to do that. Naruto was also a man with many secrets, and he liked to keep them all to himself and the people close to him, like that demon Etheria Sela. Was he trying to send a message? Mavis considered the question, deciding to trust her instincts instead. Fairy Tail's first master turned his head to look at Team Sabretooth for a brief second before shaking it. If he really was trying to send a message, it couldn't be them, because unlike his teammates, he held no grudge against the Proud Tigers. He hadn't even had any interaction with them other than a few glances. So who could it be? Who important enough to him would he risk so much? Why was he trying to attract attention when that was what he'd been trying to avoid? Was there someone she didn't know? Or was it someone she did know? There were only a handful of them, though, and most of them were long dead, while those who were still alive. Mavis's eyes then widened in realization as she turned to look at Urza, who was again trying to explain to her friends, mainly Natsu, how extremely difficult it was to create a gigantic Rasengan, and she had no idea how her eyes had become like that. 87 monsters. The wig-wearing announcer shouted as another A-class monster fell behind Naruto in defeat. 87 monsters in just 5 minutes. Naruto Uzumaki has completely mastered the mayhem. But there are still 2 A-class monsters and a Class S left, and don't forget that this is the monster that is as strong as a magician saint, one of the 10 strongest magicians in Fiori, Leher said as he looked at the counter. Unbeknownst to each of them, the Class S monster had already appeared, and Naruto had noticed its presence from the beginning of the game, but as they said, he decided to save the best for last. As the last 2 A-class monsters fell to earth headless and vanished, the one left before him was a lone monster. It was, at least compared to the others, a small black creature that took the form of a gigantic eyeball with purple, spider-like legs and 3 small horns around its body. "So, you're the only one who left?" Naruto asked with a small, satisfied smile, pointing his kunai at the creature as it glared at him angrily with one gigantic half-raised eye. "You must be the Class S monster, right? That little thing?" exclaimed a spectator in surprise. "Are you kidding me, right?" Natsu said as his right eye was violently pulled back. "What is this Class S thing? What left down they go to?" The grey color nodded his head in agreement. "Is she serious?" Orga said, nodding his head in agreement. "There's no way that flimsy thing is Class S moving at that speed, there's a chance he could have taken down the higher class monster already." "Well, you must be incredibly stupid to refuse to accept the truth," Naruto declared mockingly as he pointed at the eyeball monster. "That one is obviously the Class S monster, simply because this is the only one of its kind around here." Naruto then asked, "So, are you going to reveal your true form or not? I'm running out of patience here," he said, slashing its neck around. Quite true, the eyeball began to glow, growing exponentially as his body changed. "That's why I told you it was impossible, the pumpkin," Mato shouted as he waved his hands around. "It's set up so that when the Class S monster is the last one left, its power is tripled, the pumpkin." His statement caused everyone to widen their eyes in shock, but Naruto only raised an eyebrow in amusement. "Is this so?" Naruto asked. "Then come on," he declared confidently, offering his hand. As the light faded, a gigantic humanoid monster appeared and stood before Naruto, staring down at him with 3 glowing eyes. It was so large that Naruto, who stood 6 feet 3 inches tall, couldn't reach its ankle. Its body was heavily clad in dark-colored armor, with the eyeball, its original form, located on the front of its torso. The king, put a lot of money into creating this thing, right? Naruto asked before commenting, what garbage? I don't think now's the time for this, Naruto-kun. Mira said, laughing nervously. She, too, much like each of them, was rather terrified by the size and appearance of that monster. This was probably the biggest monster they had ever seen in their lives. Alright, Urza, I think that's enough information for you. Naruto said as he spun the kunai and dropped it to the ground before heading up the stairs to dodge a giant foot as the Class S monster began attacking him. Remember to finish your homework before midnight. He reminded her as he continued to dodge his opponent's attacks. I'm going to. Urza nodded, but she didn't put her things away. So. Can you put it down? Of course I can. Naruto nodded his head as he rolled to the left before lifting himself up and jumping back several times to create some distance between himself and the beast, which spun its massive head around to look for him. With how fast he moved, it wasn't easy for the monster to keep up. Alright, I want you to watch carefully because I'm going to show you how to do this next one. Really? Urza asked, immediately rising up on top of him as her eyes sparkled with excitement. Have I ever failed to keep my word? Naruto asked as he raised his arm, holding his hand above his head before creating a large Rasengan. At first, it appeared to be a normal Rasengan, but then 4 small energy-like blades appeared and began to move around the central core. As the blades grew larger and spun around its core faster, giving it the appearance of a massive energy shuriken windmill, the technique began to emit a loud screeching sound that could be heard throughout the domus flow. They could also see that the wind had begun to pick up. Wow! Urza gasped in shock. Wind release, Naruto said as he returned his hand. Rasen Shuriken. With that declaration, he launched the Rasengan at the gigantic monster in front of him. While many older mages wondered in amazement how he could launch such dense energy so far away, younger mages and the audience looked unimpressed because they had expected more. Can this really do anything to that monster? To tell you the truth, I don't want it to get any bigger than this. Mavis responded as the Rasen Shuriken flung above the ground, hurtling toward the S-class's torso, where the blade sliced in with ease before the Rasengan center exploded. What no one had anticipated was the size and destructive power of the blast, as it was a gigantic vortex of wind that swallowed the monster whole. Shockwaves raced outward, shaking the entire Jaleo, while inside the dome of wind, countless microscopic blades of wind were created, and they attacked the S-class at the cellular level from every direction, tearing apart its armor and ripping every heart within its body apart. The damage was so extensive that when the wind vortex dissipated, the monster, or at least what was left of it, began to shatter and crumble before turning to dust and vanishing. He did it. Chapati shouted in disbelief, terrified by Naruto's performance. With one attack alone, he's defeated the S-class monster. Naruto Uzumaki has conquered the Jaleo absolutely single-handedly. He yelled, making the crowd roar and cheer in excitement. It's flawless. Fairy Tail wins this event. It was incredible. He's amazing. Is this Fairy Tail the true strength? This isn't a big deal. Reader, the sting exceeds, said as he pointed his hand at Naruto. We could have done the same thing. He declared, trying his best to maintain a confident tone. This year isn't going to be easy for any of us with someone like him around, Lion said as the upside-down tower disappeared, allowing Naruto to return to Earth. That was amazing. You really did it. Lucy said as she approached Naruto with the rest of the team. You're really strong. Of course. Naruto nodded his head with a satisfied smile. Without a scratch, Gray smiled contentedly as he looked at Naruto, who shrank back in response. Man, I don't think any of us could do it without getting badly beaten. Is there something you want to say, Natsu? Naruto asked the pink-haired boy, who was glaring at him. Why didn't you use that technique from the beginning? Natsu asked. I mean, you could literally destroy everything from the beginning. Why are you watching this, Natsu Dragneel? Think for once. Naruto mocked, giving Natsu the urge to attack, which was normal. Relax, I was just joking. To answer your question, well, it's because I don't want to. He crossed his weapons over his chest and continued, I mean. Where's the fun in doing something like this? I was dragged into this tournament for no reason at all, so I might as well have fun doing it and make the most of it, rather than be bothered all the time. Ah, Natsu nodded in understanding before breaking into a wide grin. You're a hell of a guy, aren't you? He then pointed his finger at Naruto's face. Yosh. Fight me when this tournament is over. I've got to kick your ass. Don't point your stupid finger in my face, brat. Naruto declared expressionlessly and slapped Natsu's hand away. Also, I'm not going to fight him. He's annoying, a waste of time, and not to mention incredibly annoying. Boo. Natsu booed, lowering his thumb. And last but not least, Naruto then turned to his student, who was looking at him with a puzzled expression. I take this. You have a lot of questions for me, right? I have. Urza nodded. Why didn't you tell me that Rasengan is an incomplete technique? Ah, so you've already got it, huh? To be fair, I didn't tell you because it's quite complicated to understand and learn, and you weren't ready to handle it. Naruto laughed, nodding his head. As Team Fairy Tail left the arena, Naruto began, you've already learned about chakra control, right? Urza nodded. This was one of her first lessons, and because it was so important, she remembered it dearly and trained every day to master her chakra control. Well, there were actually two advanced forms of form transformation. Chakra control and nature transformation. Form transformation and natural transformation. That's right. Naruto nodded. Form transformation deals with controlling the shape, movement, and power of chakra, while nature transformation deals with changing the physical properties of chakra into an element. Ah, so the reason you can use all those elemental ninjutsu is because you can use nature transformation? Urza asked. Everything had finally become clear to her. You're correct. Although there's much more to nature transformation, I think you only need to know this much for now. He continued as they made their way back to their stand, completely ignoring the side game. The magnificent magic game had to determine the next teams behind Fairy Tail's team. Now, these two methods can be put into practice separately or together to create a technique. The attack power of a technique can be greatly increased when you can combine both methods, but the number of ninjas who can use both simultaneously is very limited. He then pointed at her. However, you already knew how to form the transformation. You actually mastered it. Urza's eyes widened for a second before she made her decision after carefully considering what he had said to her and how they would combine with the strongest technique she knew, the Rasengan. That's right, the Rasengan. Naruto nodded. Sensei, can a single technique determine that I've mastered shape-shifting? Urza asked curiously. I mean, it's not like I don't think you were anything, but I had tree climbing practice, water surface walking, and various other extreme exercises every day for 3 months just to make sure I had good control of my chakra. Trust me, you have it. It's because Rasengan isn't a normal technique, this is the most advanced form of shape transformation. Seriously? Urza asked, startled, before quickly making the request. So, does that mean that because this is a pure form of shape transformation, you can add nature transformation, like wind, to create Rasen Shuriken? Yes. Initially, my elder had developed Rasengan with the intention of combining it with his nature transformation. However, regardless of what he had planned, it never happened, not because he lacked the opportunity, but because he had failed to do so. He had failed. Urza stammered in shock. Her teacher, who was considered the wisest man she had ever known. One of the most powerful shinobi in history, and from what Naruto had told her, a genius, she reckoned that out because Naruto had called her a super know-it-all son of a bitch, much to his annoyance, had failed. If he had failed, then what chance did she have? Then how did he do it? You think it's easy for me? Naruto asked, chuckling slightly. Before I created Rasen Shuriken, everyone told me it was impossible. Rasengan alone is already an A-class technique. Combining it with nature transformation makes it a technique with an S rank or possibly even the highest level of difficulty to acquire. It was so difficult that I used to think it was as impossible as looking at your left and right at the same time. So what chance do I have? Urza asked in a panic, holding her head in her hands. Now, don't get scared easily. This is only theoretical talk. You still have a lot of training to do before you can even think about creating your own version of Rasen Shuriken or whatever hell that's going to be like. Naruto explained, but when he saw that she wasn't being convinced at all, he decided to say, now, if you still doubt yourself, then let me remind you that you're standing right in front of me, wearing that headband you've worked so hard to earn. He indicated the headband she wore across her forehead, despite not wearing kunoichi armor, and you proudly call yourself a kunoichi, despite not having any potential in the ninja arts. You might not be able to master a technique in 2 or 3 days, but you could in 2 or 3 weeks, or 2 or 3 months. A genius has their limits, but a hard worker doesn't. You're no genius, Urza, and you've never stopped working hard to become what you are now. So, listen to your teacher, have more confidence in yourself, okay? Urza could only stare at him in surprise. She hadn't expected anything like this from him. He was always so sharp-tongued that she used to think everything that came out of his mouth was full of venom and humiliation towards those who listened, so to say that she was impressed to hear something so nice from him was a huge understatement. However, it was truly touching. A soft laugh broke out on her face as she nodded her head. Good. Naruto turned and released a breath he hadn't known he'd been holding. This was the best way he could think of. It had been a very long time since he'd last tried mentoring someone, and it wasn't a pain or a bad move. Naruto then glanced at the stand to his left, sensing someone watching him, and saw the girl with the only female member of Team Sabretooth staring at him. When their eyes met, she immediately looked away and returned her attention to the arena, making Naruto wonder if he had already made a fan of the opposing team. Alright, Naruto asked Lucy as he stepped forward and looked around the arena. Other contestants were standing around a machine they called the Magic Boost Seeker, a device that, when struck with magical power, would display that power numerically. Because of this, the MPF was a device used to determine and measure a mage's attack power. Looking at the recording board, juror of Team Lamia, the scale was in the lead, which wasn't surprising since he was a saint of magic. The final challenger was none other than Kana, who stepped forward with a bottle of beer in her hands. She, too, looked drunk. As people began to doubt their ability to achieve a count higher than 4 figures, Kana threw the bottle and began to undress before tearing off their shirt, revealing the black emblem on their arm. And they said Shinobi was the one who didn't play the game, Naruto grumbled sarcastically as he looked at Mavis, who laughed innocently at him in response. Kana then raised her arm to the sky and began to sing loudly. Gather together. The river of light is directed by the fairies. Shine. To kill the fangs of evil. Fairy sparkle. As Kana brought it to be transmitted, a bright light fell from the sky, hitting the MPF and ruining the entire area apart. When the light went out, each of them gasped in shock when they saw the number and the broken pieces of the MPF. 9999. Kana Alberona of Fairy Tail B has surpassed even the Saint's Oath of the Wizard. What is Fairy Tail? Are they filled with monsters? The announcer exclaimed, impressed by this development, and the crowd went wild with excitement. So, with that in mind, we continue to the battle portion of day 2. He spoke up. First up, we have Lucy Hertfilia of Fairy Tail A. Against Raven Tail's Flamecrow. The crowd cheered as the 2 female mages walked ahead of their teams, both with different feelings. Lucy, nervous, while Flamecrow, confident and full of hatred for her opponent. Lucy. Show them our strength. Natsu shouted, cheering for Lucy. Good luck. Naruto nodded his head at her. Leave this to me, Lucy managed a confident laugh, I'll definitely win. Can we just be initiated, Blondie? An annoyed flare asked her opponent, making a face that made her gaze mentally unstable. Her expression made Lucy shudder slightly, but she kept it cool. Meanwhile, Makarov was completely fired up, lifting up those who were against him and propelling himself forward. The rival guild is led by that idiot Ivan. Come on, Lucy, this is the time for us to teach them a lesson. What is Crow's Tail's objective? Mavis asked, and Makarov, who had totally lost his cool, answered without thinking. Obviously, they want to humiliate us. So annoying. Mavis sighed and shook her head. I'd be fine if it were something as small as that, Mavis murmured as she returned to the sand. Okay, now for the first round advantages. Immediately after the signal was given, Lucy took out one of her golden keys and summoned her spirit, open. The gate of the golden bull. Taurus. The white bull appeared and charged into the blaze with its returned battle axe. It slashed its axe into the blaze, which quickly leaped and moved aside, but Lucy already had another key in her hand. Open, the gate of the scorpion, the scorpion. But that chant, she summoned her second spirit, Scorpion, who grounded both of them to the ground and ignited a tornado of sand in the blaze. The tangled tail witch just laughed at the response and used her magic, extending the length of her hair to create a shield in front of her, successfully blocking the scorpion's attack. Taurus. Scorpion sand. Lucy commanded, and the sand began to swirl around the Taurus battle axe. Sandstorm axe. The Minotaur shouted and slashed forward, sending the sand tunnel straight to Flare, which crashed into his body and sent him flying. The Crow's Tail mage quickly reached his feet and growled back in anger. Blondie Kamishiga Roga. The flame lengthened its hair into spirals and formed it into the front half of a large, furry, ferocious-looking and extremely realistic wolf, complete with gripping front paws, blank eyes, a canine nose, a pair of ears, a mouth full of massive sharp teeth, and a long tongue sticking out before sending it to Lucy. However, Celestial Mage countered by summoning Cancer, an expert hair designer. With 2 scissors in hand, he slashed the flare's hair, effectively negating her attack. Her cry of anger, "My hair, damn you. You bastard," sent her hair crashing to the ground and catching Lucy, swinging her around by the ankle. However, Lucy wasn't about to give up. She quickly drew her magic weapon and whipped it at the flare, hooking it around her ankle and swinging her around as well. Huge success. Chapati shouted as the crowd cheered. There wasn't even time to breathe in this battle. Battle of the father and the son's guilds. And battle of the women. Neither one retreats. Arg. The flame screamed and drilled his hair down into the earth. What are you doing? Lucy asked, confused. The flamethrower merely tilted her head and laughed wickedly as she turned to face the crowd. Lucy gained popularity and she quickly glanced at the rest of Fairy Tail, who were cheering her on from the sides. She noticed a sliver of the flamethrower's hair moving very close to Asuka, as if it was about to jump out at her at any moment. Asuka-chan. The second Lucy took her eyes off the flare, her red-haired mage immediately seized the opportunity and whipped her hair into a light blue mage, knocking her to the ground. Now, Blondie, they don't move or speak, meaning the girl dies. Crow's tail mage laughed silently and wickedly as she twirled her hair, which lay beside Asuka, in a threatening manner. She got it. But before she could finish her sentence, a voice interrupted her. "Hey Lucy." The blonde instantly snapped his head back and widened his eyes in shock and also relief when she saw Naruto standing directly next to Asuka, his hand gripping the strand of flamethrower's hair. "Keep your head in the battle, you're gonna get there." He encouraged her with a small smile. "Naruto." The master shouted in the crash before looking at the hair in his hand after he had torn it apart with his bare hands. "In a place like this?" "Naruto." Mavis tipped her head to the side and laughed at him as Naruto snapped a few strands of the flare's hair away. "You're welcome," Naruto smiled contentedly, waving his hand at her and walking back to his position. Lucy gave her a grateful glance before she glared angrily at her opponent, raising a new key after the Taurus closing and Scorpio gates. "Open, Gemini Gate of Twins." She called to her spirit. In a blink, she was free of her bondage and ready to go. "Become me," she cried. "Yes, master." The Gemini, who took the form of naked Lucy, with only a bathrobe wrapped around her body, appeared. "Why are you carrying a towel?" Lucy shouted in the clash as the crowd went wild again. "This is the last clothing you wore the last time you summoned me, the master," the Geminis replied as they grabbed the bath towel, ready to undress. "And no. Don't do it." Lucy shouted, stopping Gemini. "Anyway, go do it." Gemini understood and rushed to their master's side to perform a spell that was sure to defeat their opponent, as well as amaze the audience. Then they shook hands and chanted the incantation, the magic power blazing brightly around them as Lucy's magic power was doubled with Gemini's help. "Study the sky, open the sky. All the stars, everywhere. Show me your aspect. With such brilliance. O Tetrabiblos. I am the ruler of the stars." The aspect was made complete. "Open your malevolent gate. O 88 stars of the sky." Lucy continued as the 88 constellations of the sky appeared and then descended like spheres and bestowed their power upon the sky blonde mage, causing each to gasp in amazement and the blaze to fall on their ass and look at their opponent in fear. The brilliance. Uranus Metria. However, just as she was about to hit the flare, Lucy began to sweat profusely and found that her spelling had been cancelled out. The next instant, Lucy collapsed to the ground in exhaustion, confused as to why the spelling hadn't worked. "Rather, this hasn't left a scratch on the flare yet." "What happened?" Urza shouted. "No way." Makarov gasped at the crash. "This feeling." Sayla murmured as she turned her head and looked around the stadium. It didn't take her long to find what she was looking for. A small, devil-like creature with a broadly grinning face standing on the shoulder of a raventail mage, Abra. "The winner of this round is Crow's Tail Flare Crown." Chapati shouted into the mic and the crowd cheered loudly. Upon hearing this, Naruto quickly jumped out of the stadium and rushed towards Lucy as she tried to cover her teary eyes as the crowd laughed at her. What in the world happened? Lucy's magic didn't activate. "Yuzima-san, this is Yuzima-san." But the short old man glared angrily at a certain guild with a dark expression on his face. Around the stadium, the audience was completely confused and couldn't stop wondering what had happened. "Odd, what did they do?" Natsu growled angrily. He glared at Mag from Team Crowtail, who were all grinning smugly and laughing with satisfaction. "I'm going to get them." "Stay here, Natsu." Naruto shook his head and placed his hand on the Pinky's shoulder, stopping him. "You wait here." Before he could say anything, Naruto had already jumped over the balcony and landed on the ground before making his way to Lucy, who was trying to get back to her feet, sobbing quietly. "Why are you shouting?" Naruto asked as he extended his arm, offering Lucy his hand. "You've succeeded, you know." But she didn't get to finish because Naruto suddenly bent down and hooked his weapons under her knees and behind her back, picking his bridal style out, much to her surprise. "Wah. Come on, go get him from here." Naruto laughed as he turned and walked away with Lucy. "He's just a lost cause, we're still far ahead of them. Save the tears for later when we win, okay?" But Lucy nodded and erased the tears. "Did I ever tell you how much you remind me of someone I used to know?" Lucy widened her eyes, making Naruto chuckle softly. "No, I didn't." Line break. "How's Lucy-sensei's condition?" Urza asked when Naruto returned to the infirmary after taking his celestial mage, so Perusica could run some checks on her to make sure she was alright. "She's fine," Naruto replied. "She said she was going to take a shower and would come back to watch the rest of the day with us later." "Good to know." Urza laughed and nodded her head. "Sorry to keep you waiting, now go and prepare for the first battle of the second day." Chapati shouted as two names appeared on the Lacrima screens, Marahan Strauss of Fairy Tail Team B versus Jenny Reelite of Blue Pegasus. The audience, mostly the male group, roared with excitement, which wasn't unexpected because they were the two most beautiful girls in the magnificent magic game, with well-known reputations in the swimsuit modeling world. He turned to Mira, who was about to leave, and called out encouragingly, "Mira, do everything you can there." "Thank you, Naruto-kun." Mira laughed and headed down to the sand just like Jenny. Murahin and Jenny endured the confrontation, both guarding the confident laughter on their faces. "Come on, Mira." Urza shouted as she put both hands in front of her, cheering for her best friend, "Fight with everything you've got." But then, her mouth dropped open in horror as she saw the battle. "What's going on here?" "Ah, I see." Naruto smiled contentedly as he leaned forward. "The organizers sure know how to put together interesting matchups, right?" In a flash, Naruto had magical cufflinks in his hand that he then used to hold a much closer eye to the arena below. "Doom girls." He laughed slyly before turning sideways when he noticed the odd look Urza gave him. "What? I'm a man, right? There's no mistaking the enjoyment of a view like this," he remarked before turning back to enjoy the spectacle. Meanwhile, Makarov, just like any other male in the stadium, watched a battle with hearts in his eyes. "Because this isn't just a battle, this is a swimsuit battle." "How's this?" Murahin laughed seductively, changing into a two-piece orange bikini with a white floral pattern. She knelt on the ground, one arm tucked under her left breast and the other supporting her right breast, lifting them and making her breasts look even larger than before. "And this?" Jenny retaliated with a similar tactic, controlling her hands by pulling her hair back and smoothing down her chest to accentuate her own large breasts in her blue swimsuit. The crowd went wild now that the woman had finally won over the men, shouting with excitement at the sight of their idols in swimsuits. "I'm back. What's going on with each of you?" Lucy announced her return to Wendy, who had fully recovered and asked with a bright laugh. To answer her question, Mira simply indicated the battlefield where the two models had changed into new bikini sets. "Mira. And Jenny realized too. I guess this might help since they're both pin-up models. Apparently, there's some kind of rule that allows them to turn this fight into a cheesecake showdown." Urza sighed before laughing at Wendy. "Hello. Wendy, how are you feeling?" "I feel fine, Urza-san, thank you." Wendy laughed back with a nod of her head. "Naruto really enjoys it, right?" Lucy asked, laughing nervously as she looked at Naruto. Urza could only shake her head. She agreed with her logic, but the need to show it so accidentally, so clearly, and so perversely. "What do you think of this?" Murahin struck another alluring pose, her hand holding the front bangs of her wavy white hair above her, bending her back to show off her ass. Her bikini was changed into another bikini, this one light blue in color. "Hi," Jenny replied, wearing a leopard print bikini. Her thumb pulled down the bikini top to reveal more skin. "Man, this is pure gold," Naruto commented excitedly as the two gorgeous models continued a series of bikini and lingerie. The themes changed rapidly, from school uniforms and catgirl outfits to bondage, stockings, and tights. The two really held nothing back. "Seriously, what the hell comes next?" Gray-colored, sweat dripping nervously. They can really do this kind of thing in a battle scene?" Wendy asked, shaking slightly, feeling extremely down because of Mira and Jenny's voluptuous body, something she always wanted to have. "As expected, quite impressive," Jenny noted, laughing at her opponent. "You too, Jenny," Murahin admitted with a nod of her head. "I didn't think you'd be okay with having a swimsuit competition like this." "Yes, well, after all, I really don't like slugfists," Murahin confessed sincerely. "We're better off if we can reach a peaceful outcome, aren't we?" "Ah." The former swimsuit model colleagues. With both of them employing transformation magic, this feels like a dream come true. Chapati shouted as he awarded a point to Jenny, while Leiher and Yazima went for Mira. "But at this rate, this is never going to end, so let's make this next game the last." "Here we go." Jenny grumbled, her eyes flashing with malice. "Look, it seems this is the end. This will decide who the best model is." "Apparently." Mira nodded, laughing innocently. "To make the victory even sweeter, how about we make a bet?" Jenny asked as she pointed her hand at Mira. "How about the loser appearing naked in the Weekly Sorcerer's magazine?" The men immediately gasped in shock, blood trickling from their noses. Even Naruto, who could keep his cool better than anyone, nearly dropped his cufflinks when Jenny declared this. "That's for sure." And much to her surprise, Mira agreed with an innocent laugh. "Wow, what an incredible bet has been made here." Chapati shouted. "The final topic will be the battle form. Jenny, as her body began to glow, they're going to do it, Mira." When the light went out, Jenny had a new look. Her head was covered by a dark ruffled bandage connected to conical ear protectors that jutted out and back. Her torso was covered by a dark battle suit with light edges, divided into two main parts. A revealing shirt that exposed a fair amount of her cleft and belly, while her legs were covered in similar trousers, tight-fitting, but leaving the inner parts of her thighs exposed. The two pieces were joined together at the front by two thin, dark straps, creating an X corresponding to Jenny's abdomen, each edge secured by thin, light clasps, while at the back the shirt and trousers were made into a single garment, with a strap-like piece covering her lower opening and the upper center of it exposed. She wore light gauntlets that extended to her shoulders, each secured by a series of buttons on the inside of her arms, which had metal plating corresponding to her hands and metal bands along their upper edges. Each arm had the aforementioned portion joined together by a thick dark cord, firmly arched and not hanging down, similar to a hose. Her legs were covered by thigh-high armored boots, sporting particularly large upper rims that turned upward, as well as high metal heels. Jenny's neck was concealed by plate armor that extended over her shoulders in the form of turned-up shoulder guards and down to her chin, with two peculiar projections that concealed her ears, growing smaller as they moved further from her face. "So I guess this will be my comeback then." Marahan laughed as her magic power blazed around her. "This is new," Naruto said as he removed the cufflinks. "There was no need for these anymore." "She's not going to." Urza gasped as Marahan began to transform. She did. In this form, Mira grew taller and more massive, her facial features and expression changing accordingly, gaining a sinister look. She gained a fair amount of thin markings on her arms, as well as much longer, scruffier hair, sticking out in many pointed, upturned tufts, still with her signature thread tie, which grew longer. Her torso and part of her lower body were covered by a dark overcoat with light-colored edges, which was torn at the bottom, revealing a fair amount of her slit. This slit was left open at the front, and the parts covering Marahan's chest were fastened at a high, wide collar. The coat came with noticeably short checkered sleeves, their outer portions amplifying her arms into a pointed protrusion, vaguely reminiscent of shoulder pads due to their sharp shape. The open coat was encircled and secured to Marahan's abdomen by a light belt that passed only under her breasts, fastened by a simple buckle, while a similar though slightly larger belt that encircled around her waist held light clothing, covering the back and side parts of her coat. The drapery across her shoulders was a large dark cape with ragged lower edges, not unlike her coat. The armor plating rose from Marahan's neck, forming 3 points above her chin and widening to cover her ears, flanking her face, with two large horn-like protrusions jutting out from her sides. Mira's forearms sported armored gauntlets. Her legs appeared to be covered in large dark tattoos, resembling the shape of thigh-high boots. Such markings could also have been ornaments on a pair of tight-fitting trousers. The most distinctive element of this already peculiar transformation, however, was her feet. These were completely obscured from view, and her calves instead ended in a sea of sharp flames, engulfing the ground in the immediate area around Marahan, their tongues reaching as high as the back of the class mage. Each leg also had 4 small glowing vertical lines placed close together on the front, where the feet themselves, as they were supposed to be, had been. Wendy and Lucy gasped in amazement at Mira's new transformation. "What is that form?" "Demon Marahan Sitri." Urza laughed as she crossed her hand over her chest. "From what I know, this is the strongest Satan soul." "I have acknowledged your wager, Jenny," Mira said, her voice rising in a much deeper tone, "and now, I would like you to acknowledge my strength." Jenny paled at the response and glared terribly at her rival. Mira then lunged at Jenny and landed a single blow. The attack was so powerful that it knocked Jenny out of her fighting form, sending her sprawling to the ground, the top of her dress scorched to ashes, leaving all the spectators in awe. Lamentable. Mira shifted back into her human form and chuckled softly at the screaming girl. "I can't wait to see you in your birthright, Jenny." After saying this, she walked away. "Poor girl," Naruto commented as Jenny began to scream. "She really has no idea what she's gotten herself into." Victor. Marahan. Line break. "You have been chosen as the reserve member of this team. Do you understand what this means, right?" "Yes, I will not bring shame upon the name of Sabretooth." Yukino nodded. "This means I have to win no matter what." As soon as she heard her name called to be Kagura Mikazuchi's opponent in the final battle of the second day, Yukino made a silent promise to her that she would give her her best shot. If she lost, it would mean she wasn't worthy of the title of Sabretooth Mage. The young mage couldn't help but sigh with anticipation as she began to think about what would happen to her. This had been her lifelong dream to unite Sabretooth, and today would be the deciding factor. Would she sink? Or would she float? As she took to the field, nervousness shook her body and her pale hands became drenched with sweat. She quickly wiped them onto her skirt, her cloak, which flared at her feet, kept her action well hidden, trying to let her nervousness sink. "It's nice to find you." Yukino lowered her head as she greeted Kagura. The swordswoman was surprised and she waved back as she turned, "Nice to see you too." "Well, why don't we also make a bet like the previous contestants?" she suggested. "Unfortunately, I'm not interested in this." Kagura shook her head. "Are you afraid you'll lose?" "I don't think so. This is simply because I believe people should keep their promises if they make a bet." Kagura closed her eyes as she continued, I have no interest in casual bets. So they're just going to make one big bet then. Yukino paused for a second before saying, life they're going to bet our lives on this competition. Seriously, what's needed to take this far? Natsu asked amidst a shock. What's wrong with her? Gray asked while looking at Yukino with wide eyes. This girl, Naruto murmured thoughtfully. Yukino reached into her pocket and released the Pisces key, letting it gleam as the door was ready to open with just a few words. Kagura said, looking at the key. A golden key. Is she a celestial mage too? Lucy asked in surprise. Open, Twin Fish Gate. Yukino declared as she raised her key. Pisces. Pisces emerged from its gate in battle mode, its fish-like form resembling eels, not fish. Why this was the Twin Fish Gate and not the Eel Gate, Yukino could never understand. They were black and white, almost as if they were yin and yang. Kagura easily dodged aside as they attacked, her eyes closed. Yukino was impressed. Kagura was more powerful than she had expected. What a load of rubbish. If you're so good at dodging, then all I need is to land you. Yukino said, holding out the Libra key. Open, Gate of the Divine Scales, Libra. The 12 golden keys are here. Only great. The immortal shinobi muttered sarcastically as he continued watching the fight. 2 gates. Just like Lucy from Fairy Tail, Yukino must be a powerful celestial mage. Maintaining 2 gates is no easy task. Chapati said, eliciting cheers and shouts of excitement from the crowd. As Libra appeared, the crowd went wild as they watched her reveal her attire and feminine figure. Hearts could be seen fluttering in about half the men present. She's another incredibly beautiful zodiac spirit. Chapati shouted out. Izima said, she is a sight for sore eyes. Libra, change your gravity. As you wish. Libra replied, moving her hands up and down, causing Kagura to fall to the ground. She was being pulled down by a multitude of pressure, the result of a gravity shift. Isis. Yukino commanded, and the twin fish, knowing what she was thinking, went to attack. However, Kagura had escaped at the last moment. She's fine. Naruto nodded. To be able to deflect attacks from both sides in such a heavy gravity field isn't exactly a normal feat, I must say. I see. Yukino murmured. Her plans to win over Pisces and Libra fell apart. Kagura struck both spirits with her sheathed sword, knocking them both far away from the impact. Pisces, Libra, return, Yukino said, and made their spirits disappear. Are you going to open the 13th gate for me? Yukino asked her opponent. Kagura stared in awe, his eyes wide as Yukino posted a black, strangely designed key. The opening of the 13th gate. Which means you are unlucky, Yukino said. Whenever she used this key, her opponent always fell before her. This was her last key. The gate key glowed purple as she waited for it to speak the summoning words. Luck, huh? Kagura asked. I haven't relied on who I was since I was born. Everything that's happened is due to the choices I've made. She said, placing her hand on the hilt of her sword, archenemy. They lead me to the future. Open, the gate of the serpent charmer, Yukino began calmly. Aphiaches. Yukino shouted. The great black serpent appeared, the dark swirling sands filled with purple clouds. A gigantic metallic serpent, Aphiaches delighted. Kagura gave no response as she continued forward. Aphiaches went to attack, but the mermaid easily dodged to the side and struck the gigantic serpent with her unsheathed sword, the blade of resentment, archenemy, unsheathed sword style. With a single attack, she cleaved Aphiaches in two, forcing the spirit back to the celestial spirit world. I don't think so, Yukino muttered horribly, her eyes widening in horror as Kagura approached and struck her with the back of her sword. Her decision to make a bet was too hasty, Kagura stated calmly as she stood behind Yukino, who had fallen, like a mermaid sometimes devouring tigers. Yes, Yukino stammered, tears continuing to stream from her eyes. She lost her life. Kagura said as she walked away. This belongs to me now, the right. Yes. Yukino said as the tears fell from her eyes, I will obey you. That was it. She was going to be expelled from her guild. His final defeat marked the end of the second day of the magnificent magic game. End of chapter 12. Chapter 13. Were you? I'm sure I ate, Natsu said with satisfaction as he held his slightly bulging belly, making his way back to Honeybone with Naruto, Wendy, Lucy, and the 2 blue and white exceeds. This was the night after the second day of the Grand Magic Games, and Fairy Tail had had a huge party at a local bar to celebrate their massive victory that morning. Lucy had lost, but it was nothing to be ashamed of because Crowtail had cheated her way to victory. Naruto, Kana, and Mira's huge wins were still something to celebrate. You ate too much, Carla said sternly, pointing her paw at Natsu before turning to Fellas and giving him the same stern look. So did you, Fellas. I'm full too. He meowed happily, having gotten himself 2 of his favorite tuna catch in total. He might be a small cat, but he could eat a lot. Is the lodging this way? Wendy asked, turning around to see Lucy talking to Naruto about her upcoming novel. Yes, we're almost there. Maid Celeste nodded her head with a laugh. Is each of us in the same space? Wendy asked nervously, her cheeks turning slightly red. This is really the worst. Lucy forced a laugh before sighing anxiously. Natsu snores so loudly, the gray will be naked before you know it. Urza always makes slow incursions into my bed. The only one who doesn't cause any trouble is Naruto. He usually stays out all night and only comes back early in the morning to wake us up and get ready for the tournament. Don't you sleep, Naruto-san? Wendy asked, turning Naruto round. Lucy looked at him too, wanting to hear his answer as she always wondered about this. I only need 2 hours of sleep a week. Both girls' eyes widened in surprise. Yeah, I don't sleep much. But how can you stay awake and not feel sleepy? Lucy asked. I'm used to it, Naruto replied shortly, laughing at them. I waste my sleep time, which I can usually do better things like studying, meeting people, and doing things independently without someone bothering me. Since there's no one around, this is daytime time you can focus on yourself. It was like this, Naruto, that they weren't surprised at all. But anyway, I don't think you two should follow my example. Young girls like yourselves need to get enough sleep to stay healthy, as lack of sleep can be a pain to those who aren't used to it. Lucy and Wendy nodded their heads. They couldn't agree more. Damn it, you're definitely a monster man. Natsu, who had also been listening to his speech, had said with admiration before both of them threw their hands up in the air and shouted loudly, Yosh, I'm not going to sleep tonight either, so I can use that time to train. I don't think this is a good idea, Lucy said, forcing a nervous laugh. She then looked around, noticing the absence of Titania Urza Scarlet and the infamous fairy tale divider, Grey Fullbuster. Has anyone seen Grey and Urza? She asked curiously. Poor Grey. Carla giggled softly, shrugging her shoulders. It seems like the color gray got swept away by Lion. What about Urza-san? Wendy asked curiously. I haven't seen her, now that you mention it. Lucy shook her head before turning back to Naruto. Naruto, do you know where she is? She went to the Mermaid's Heel lodgings to find that catgirl who I assume is another childhood friend of hers. I saw 2 of them walking together not too long ago. Naruto informed them before the request. She'll probably be back before midnight though, because she needs to give me the answers to the test I gave her this morning. They nodded. She had to figure out how the Flying Thunder God technique worked and give the answer to Naruto before midnight. She still didn't have the answer, but from what they had heard from the imposition, who had given her the record for the second day of the game, Urza believed it had something to do with her triple kunai blades. Hey, guys. Natsu suddenly called out when they were only a block away from Honeybone, pointing his hand ahead. There's someone in front of our lodging. His eyes flicked to the person standing in front of Honeybone. With their enhanced vision, it was easy enough for Naruto and the Dragon Slayer to see who it was, but Lucy and the cats were having a lot of trouble. That's really it. That person is. You guys have such nice eyes, Lucy said as she put her hand to her forehead. Huh? This took her a few more steps closer to see who it was, and to say she was surprised was an understatement. This was Yukino Ikuria, the celestial mage of Sabretooth. Line break. The business? Lucy asked in confusion, staring at the girl sitting on the sofa in front of her. With me? Naruto sat down on the chair at the table behind Lucy, as he had decided to hear what Yukino had to say. As things stood, 2 celestial mages who possessed the 12 golden zodiac keys were extremely annoying, not to mention dangerous. Yes. Yukino nodded her head. I have important business to discuss with you, Lucy-sama. What's Saber trying to pull this time? Natsu grunted, making Yukino glance nervously at him. Naruto then raised his hand and slammed his fist onto the top of his head, making him yelp in pain. Hey. You want to pick a fight? He shouted, but Naruto ignored the Dragon Slayer as he glared at Yukino. Too bad, he doesn't know how to properly address a lady, Naruto said calmly. When this was his turn to be nervously eyed by Yukino, he continued, personally, I don't have any problem with you or any of your teammates. Aside from some arrogant speeches and the holy the now attitude, Sabretooth hasn't done anything to me, so I think we're all cool here. Wendy and Lucy nodded in agreement, giving Yukino a comforting laugh. Thank you, Naruto-sama. Yukino nodded her head in gratitude. No need for the honorific suffix. Naruto shook his head. Yukino only glanced at him for a second before turning her attention back to Lucy. Anyway, Lucy-sama, this might be quite a bold request, but… Yukino said as she reached down and pulled something from her pockets. Placing it on the table, the silver-haired light mage took her hand behind her and revealed them to be her golden keys, much to Lucy's surprise and everyone's astonishment. The key to the mated Pisces fish and the key to the divine Libra scale, she continued. I would like you to take 2 of these, Lucy-sama. Everyone, especially Lucy, was impressed by her request. Naruto, meanwhile, stared at Yukino in a strange way. He saw her there with Lucy, didn't he? Had history been changed? It shouldn't be possible because, as far as he could remember, he hadn't done anything to prevent the door from opening. Yet. This is impossible, Lucy replied, looking at Yukino. I can't take them. When I saw Lucy Sama today, I decided that after the games were over, I would give her these keys, Yukino said, closing her eyes. The games aren't over yet. Did Naruto remember that, or is there something else we don't know? Yes. Unfortunately, my time is over, Naruto-sama, Yukino replied, causing the younger fairy to look at her in surprise. I was only a reserve member of Team Sabretooth. Minerva-sama will likely take my place. With this, the strongest 5 that Sabretooth has been assembled. So then happy saying, remembering what Mac said about the strongest 5, those whom the Sabretooth Guildmaster had gathered a few years ago. Those 5 were very strange but very capable mages. They were Rufus, Orga, the Twin Dragon Slayers, the Sting and the Rogue, and finally the Sabretooth Guildmaster's daughter, Minerva the Orlando. Weren't you part of them? If Minerva-sama was in the middle of a job, then I was allowed to take her place, Yukino explained, gripping her hands tightly. But why? Wendy asked, looking confused. These star spirits are precious to you, aren't they? That's precisely why. Yukino replied. These celestial spirits will be happier, as will I, if they are entrusted to Lucy-sama, who is a more exceptional distant spirit mage than I am. Her eyes saddened for a moment. This is quite a happy request. Lucy gave a nervous laugh, fluttering her fingers. But for me? You have already collected 10 of the 12 golden zodiac keys, Yukino said. With these 2 keys Yukino looked at Lucy, her face more serious than ever. The 12 keys have been collected, she said in a serious tone, the gateway that will change the world. Do you know about that legend? Naruto asked. This wasn't exactly a legend, but he'd decided to go with the flow anyway. Yes, it's mentioned in many history books about magic. Yukino nodded her head. The entrance that changes the world? Lucy asked fearfully. What does this mean? As I said, this is just an old legend, Yukino paused for a second before continuing, I don't understand its meaning either. You might have noticed this already, but the number of celestial spirit mags has decreased over the past few years. Even a mage from our guild lost their magic, and there was the Zootopia incident a while ago, too. We might be the only 2 celestial spirit mags left now. She then laughed at Lucy. You're the one who likes and loves spirits. You should carry the 12 golden zodiac keys and ride along with these spirits. Yukino finished, laughing at Lucy. Unfortunate, Lucy shook her head, surprising Yukino. But I can't accept them. Lucy gave an impressed Yukino a gentle laugh. Celestial spirit magic is a magic of obligations and trust, she explained. There's no way the owners can be changed so easily. This wasn't an easy solution, Yukino said, sighing anxiously. What? Lucy asked, looking at Yukino, who stood up and bowed her head to them. I figured you'd say this, Yukino said as she stood directly above Lucy, laughing. When time comes the 12 keys will naturally be reunited. The blonde could only laugh at her. Even though she was a celestial mage, she was just as confused by Yukino's words as anyone. It would be nice if we could meet again, Yukino said as she waved goodbye and left. Naruto just stood there, staring into the empty space before him for a moment, pondering what he should and shouldn't do. Naruto knew he had to make his move carefully. He noticed the luggage outside Honeybone when the group entered his space with Yukino. It likely belonged to the girl. He guessed she was leaving town, but it would be very troublesome if she actually did because, first, he saw her there with Lucy, and second, if she really did leave and the future were altered, it would be impossible for Lucy to summon the 12 zodiac spirits. There was a chance she would risk her life attempting to do so. Naruto, where are you going? Lucy asked when she saw Naruto making his way outside. You're the one those guys are waiting for here. I'll be back in a moment, Naruto said as he put on his shoes and grabbed his jacket. Opening the door, he turned and spoke to Lucy. Line break. As she walked away from Honeybone, throwing her luggage behind her, she couldn't stop wondering where she should go and what she should do next. Hey Yukino. Then suddenly, Yukino heard someone's voice she didn't expect. Hold on for a second there. Yukino turned and saw Naruto walking towards her with a small laugh on his face, his hands in his pockets. Naruto-sama. She said, impressed to see him there. What are you doing here? I just wanted to make sure you're okay and that the safe gets home. You didn't seem very happy when you were coming towards us. In fact, I can see your mood is down, Naruto said. You went to all that trouble chasing me just for that? She asked in shock, her voice trembling. I noticed the luggage when you came here, Naruto said, eyeing the blue luggage Yukino was pulling. Where were you going in this distribution gear anyway? It's almost midnight, isn't it? Even if you're more of a Team Sabretooth member, why don't you stay and cheer for your team? He asked, looking around. It's just she stammered, trembling. Hey, are you alright there? Naruto asked, noticing the tears appearing at the corners of her eyes. Why are you screaming? He asked, his voice becoming soft and comforting. I'm sorry. Yukino said vehemently, tears freely tearing her cheeks. I just can't take it anymore, she cried and fell to her knees, screaming into her hands. The only people who ever treated me like this were my sister. Naruto stared at her in surprise, listening as the girl poured out her heart. I always respected Sabretooth. Last year, I finally got in, but I'm not allowed to come back anymore. What happened, Yukino? Naruto asked, lowering himself to one knee before placing a hand on her shoulder. Only that one loss, Yukino gasped. They kicked me out of the guild. They forced me to be naked in front of a lot of people. They forced me to erase my guild seal with my own hands. Naruto's expression hardened. He wasn't worried about them kicking her out of their guild because this wasn't just his business. But was it really necessary to humiliate a maiden like that, right in front of her guildmates? He had to wonder. He understood why Natsu had so much trouble with Sabretooth and its members. This was so bitter and humiliating, Yukino continued, and Naruto could only squeeze her shoulder comfortingly. My self-respect and guild memories were completely destroyed, Yukino said as she tried to wipe the tears from her eyes. Everything will be alright, Yukino. How many years had it been since he'd last said those comforting words to someone? He couldn't remember. This is that it's not Naruto-sama. I have nowhere to go back to. I still don't know what to do now. She said, hiccuping slightly as she looked at him. When I heard you said that Urza-sama has more confidence in her, I thought I could do it too. Even though your words weren't stingy to me, they gave me the courage, the strength, and everything I lacked to face Kaguya-sama in battle. I thought I could accomplish something if I tried my best as well. This makes me feel like I'm worth something. I'm so ashamed of myself to feel this way. Naruto didn't know what to say. Those words. This girl. She was just like a woman he used to know, love, and care for. Yes. Yukino said, trying to wipe the tears from her eyes. I'm sorry. But her eyes widened in shock as Naruto suddenly moved his hand from her shoulder behind her head and gently pulled her to his chest, giving her a comforting hug. Naruto-sama. She said, looking up at him in surprise. It's okay, Yukino, it's okay for you to feel this way. You don't have to be ashamed of your feelings. They're just natural human emotions, after all. Naruto said softly before his tone hardened. Sabretooth should be the ones ashamed of what they did. Line break. I'm back. Urza announced as she entered their shared space, carrying a paper bag in her hand. Hello. Wendy, it's good to finally have you here with us. She gave a warm laugh to the sky blue-haired dragon slayer, who she had seen sitting on Lucy's bed and talking with her friend Carla. Thank you, Urza-san, Wendy replied earnestly. Lucy, Natsu, has the gray color returned yet? They both shook their heads, Urza nodding hers in understanding before asking, looking around. As for Naruto. He left after Yukino. She replied and then continued when she noticed the confused look on Urza's face. This is a long story. Is this so? Urza nodded her head and walked towards her bed. Hey, Urza, what are you carrying? Natsu asked as he glanced at the bag in Urza's hands before dodging her fist when she tried to punch him away. Instant ramen. Really? Can I have some? They're for Naruto, Natsu, Urza said as she pointed her hand at her face. Do you like instant ramen? Go ahead and say he likes all ramen, good or bad, but he usually prefers good, so I bought the best at the store, Urza said, but she nodded her head anyway. I bought these so I could bribe him into being merciful and fail his test. Usually, failures come with punishments, so the last thing I want right now is to be punished by him. Urza said with a horrified expression, causing the girls, especially Wendy, to look at her nervously as sweat dripped down their faces. What did he do to her? Lucy asked, impressed. Anyway, you still don't know how Haracian works. I do, but I'm not 100% sure. This instant ramen cup is just a backup plan in case I give you the wrong answer. She said, I couldn't cook ramen, at least not the delicious kind, so I decided to buy these. Well, good luck to you then. Lucy laughed quietly. Speaking of, why don't you call him sensei? Don't tell him this, but I don't like calling him sensei when he's not around. Urza said, scratching the back of her head. You know, it feels strange somehow to call someone who's only a few years older than you teacher. I mean. Urza Scarlet. I know you're in there. Open this door this instant. However, before Urza could finish her explanation, they heard a female voice shouting for Urza, followed by the sound of someone slamming their fist against the door several times with much more force than necessary. Whoever it was, she was quite impatient, loud, and not in a good mood. Her eyes widening as she recognized the voice's owner, Urza immediately turned and walked toward the door so she could open it. Quite certain, she saw Naruto's imposter servant on the other side. She was wearing her cloak, but she hadn't pulled up the hood, so her face was visible. Sayla, who are you? Where is the master? She broke out in fury. Where is he? Calm down, it's you talking. I couldn't find him anywhere. He suddenly disappeared. You know where he is, right? She asked again in the same tone. Her eyes were sharp and almost impassive. How do I know? Urza asked, crossing her weapons over her chest, feeling a little annoyed by Sayla's attitude. No, as you're supposed to, you're the one who follows him around everywhere he goes, like a loyal puppy. What did you say? Sayla grunted as she raised a hand. Unfortunately, no fight broke out because Lucy had finally decided to ask. Urza, what is this? This is Sayla. She's Naruto's servant, Urza introduced, turning her head to face her friends, who all gasped in shock, or at least, she likes to think so. Those horns, are they her? Wendy asked nervously, looking at Sayla's golden horns. Yes, Wendy. She's a devil, not a friendly type. Urza nodded her head. I think you say enough, Scarlet Urza. Sayla interrupted. Now, tell me where my master isn't before I. Lucy-sama. This was Sayla's return, only to be interrupted when Yukino rushed onto the set. The look on her face was a combination of worry and nervousness, as well as many others. Please, you have to help me. What is Yukino wrong with? Lucy asked as she stood up. This is Naruto-sama. Line break. Sabertooth was one of the luckiest guilds around the Grand Magic Games, as the entire guild managed to secure the use of Saffron Gardens as their accommodation for the duration of the games. It was nearly midnight and everyone was fast asleep, perfectly understandable that one of their childhood guildmates had just been expelled from the guild. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, something exploded. What the? Sting cried out in shock, jumping out of bed and looking around. His drowsiness instantly vanished when he heard a lot crashing, followed by an explosion and a scream beneath him. What's going on? Reader asked his cat as they heard another scream. Grabbing his vest, the light dragon slayer ran towards the door and saw his fellow rogue and Fro flying beside him. Eyes! The Sting exclaimed, running towards them. What's next? There's an intruder attacking us. The scoundrel explained, a bead of sweat forming on his temple. An intruder? The Stinger said in the shock as they ran toward the lobby. Who is it? Hit me, the Sting replied, gritting his teeth. But he probably has a death wish. Rushing through the lobby, the doors to the hall exploded and one of his guildmates was blown out. Hey. The Sting asked the guy who was lying about on the ground. Are you okay? Who did this? He's too strong, the guy muttered before heading out. The Stinger looked at the door, his expression changing from confused to startled. Get the hell out of my way, trash. He never expected to see Naruto Uzumaki standing right there, ruthlessly beating up the men who tried to stop him as if they were nothing. Worse, he looked like he wasn't even trying to do this at all. When the lobby was clear, Naruto walked toward the hallway with slow steps, cracking his fingers dangerously. Sabertooth Mag gathered in the hallway, nervously watching Naruto as he made his way inside. They all knew just how powerful this man was, and clearly, the path of destruction he had carved out just now was not something to be taken lightly. You've got business with me, brat. A tall elderly man, distinguished by his massive, extremely muscular physique, untarnished despite his advanced age, roughly pushed his mag out of the way and stood in front of Naruto, clearly visible below him. This was Jima, the master of Sabertooth. Are you the master? Naruto asked as each of them stared at him in shock, thinking he had gone mad. Well, it saves me time to find you. His eyes then darkened as he returned the glare the massive man was giving him. I came to kick your ass, old man. The others yawned in shock at his statement. Jima was impressed. Kicked out just because of a loss? Naruto asked, raising an eyebrow. Does she sound familiar? Some of Sabertooth's mages, like Sting and Rogue, immediately knew he was talking about Yukino. I don't know what you're talking about, but you act on your own sense of justice, huh? Justice? Ah, hell no, there's no such thing there. Naruto spoke. Now, I might be a cold-hearted bastard, but even the hot tears of a young woman can melt the coldest heart. Naruto then pointed his finger at Jima. You kicked Yukino, a pure maiden of your guild, shattered her dream, and worst of all, you humiliated her in front of everyone in a way that was completely unacceptable and destroyed the good memories of Sabertooth in her heart, all in one single night. People like you don't deserve to be a master, you don't even deserve to breathe down my neck like this. To make the skies roar, to make the earth's water boil, to make the seas silent, that is Sabertooth, Jima said impassively. You fired her just because of a loss? Naruto asked. Why didn't you fire Rufus then? Didn't he lose my student, Urza? Rufus will have another chance to prove himself on the battlefield when he fights Fairy Tail. The guildmaster replied, I simply have no compassion for weaklings like her. You sound more like a tyrant than a guildmaster. How you can prune like you do, making yourself a guildmaster, is out of my reach, unless every one of you standing here in front of me is nothing but disgusting lowlife trash too. Naruto said as he stretched out his weapons and looked around at the angry mages who glared at him as he called them trash. Hold on for a second, I'll take that back of you. You guys are even worse than trash. He yelled, the sadistic laugh on his face making the weaker magic users take a step back in nervousness. Now, enough joking around and getting back to business, I came here to beat the shit out of every one of you. He said, pointing his hand at each of them, and I promise you I won't leave this place until you're all good enough to pour into a superfluous arc, which I'll make myself. Ahaha. Jima laughed loudly. That's some big words for a fly like you. Surely you don't think a mere fairy can defeat a tiger. We'll think about this. Naruto's expression darkened. So, what are you going to do? Will you willingly let me collect their bodies, or are you going to put up a fight? It's still too early for you to go and challenge someone like me. Naruto made a mocking expression when Jima said that the Bengal would be a reasonable opponent for him. A man wearing shinobi gear walked by and knelt beside him. Yes, I love you. A ninja? Well, come here. Naruto sneered, holding one hand behind his back and making a come-over gesture with the other. This is 100 years too early for the taste of a common guild soldier like yourself to challenge me. Jima said. If you wish to fight those above you, show me that you are qualified to do so. The Bengal then charged at Naruto, his hands restrained, and they were submerged in the rainbow halo. But before he could do anything, Naruto moved to the side and drove his elbow into his right shoulder, breaking it and several other bones in his body in the process. He then slammed his hand around, creating a water dragon from the air and sending it crashing into the saber-tooth mage. The mage was hurled through several walls of Saffron Garden before being sent flying from the building, his body covered in deep cuts. No one dared to say a word after seeing one of their guild's top 10 members defeated just like this. Who's next? Naruto asked coldly as the water dragon surrounded him, glaring angrily at the mages before falling to the ground and returning to normal water. Master, let me. The Sting took a step forward, but his master extended his arm, stopping him. I see that. Amuse. Jima pushed down the right side of his kimono and said loudly, they're coming at me with all of you. However, before he could even finish his statement, Naruto had already been standing directly in front of him, appearing in a flash. The faster he could react, Naruto's fist flashed and he launched his punch, sucking the man's jaw shut. The force of Naruto's jackhammer caused a powerful shockwave that swept everything in the area away. Some saber-tooth members, unable to handle it, were knocked to the ground and had to spread the earth with a roller to ensure they weren't blown out of the building. The entire Saffron Garden Lodge shook as if struck by an earthquake, and the portion of the building in front of it couldn't withstand the shockwave and collapsed into pieces. When the dust had settled, Naruto wasn't surprised to see Jima still standing in front of him, unharmed. The category between him and the man was a girl with black hair and sharp dark-colored eyes, her arms outstretched and hands covered in the multicolored halo. Well, aren't you a rather small thing? Naruto said in an impassive tone. She had managed to deflect the force of his drill at the last second with her magic. It was, more or less, a considerable achievement. However. Stay out of my way. Suddenly, Minerva heard a voice to her right and before she even had a chance to turn her head in that direction, another Naruto appeared and threw several shurikens at her. Blinking in surprise as the Naruto in front of her disappeared in a puff of smoke, Minerva was then pulled apart by an invisible force, her weapons being fastened tightly to the sides of her body. This dragged her through the building and slammed her against a wall, the wind knocking from her lungs. As she struggled, she finally realized there was no unseen force. It was the weapons Naruto had thrown at her that had thin wires attached to them. The shuriken curved in the air, wrapped the wires around her body, binding her completely and pulling her against the wall. As Minerva tried to free herself from the wires, Naruto snapped a piece of paper at the nearest wall, much to everyone's surprise at the moment it came into contact with the solid surface, it exploded like a bomb. Stay where you are and don't try your luck, Naruto said. Minerva looked around and her eyes widened in shock when she saw him snap the same papers at her, pulling her body and the wall around her. There were many of them, at least 2 dozen. Those papers are more than enough to level this floor. The slightest impact could make them explode. Since your hands are tied, you won't be able to throw the territory out in time. There's no chance for you to make it out alive. Consider yourself very lucky, because I know you weren't there when your father humiliated Yukino right in front of her guildmates. You. Minerva gritted her teeth, but she didn't dare move. The mistress defeated just like this? Rufus asked, sweating nervously. The W, what is he? A member asked, impressed. Don't make me reconsider my decision. Naruto said before turning back to Jima, who was looking at him with her expression unchanged. Now, where are we? So be it, brat. I'll show you true power. The saber-tooth guildmaster said as a purple halo blazed powerfully around him, knocking back several mages standing nearby and causing the others to look nervously, startled by their master's display of power. However, the same could not be said to Naruto. Disappear, brat. He declared as he held his arm, palm facing Naruto. Hear that tiger's roar, the area around Naruto glowed intensely and then exploded. However. I'd rather not, Naruto declared coldly as he appeared in front of Jima and drove his elbow into his face, sending him flying with a startled expression. Naruto had to admit he felt a little satisfied when he saw the man's teeth fly out of his mouth. They were followed by saliva and of course, a lot of blood as Naruto's attack knocked his jaw out of place. The strongest guild. More like the most disorganized guild I've ever seen. Master. The stinger shouted as the master tried to pick himself up and carry Naruto, but not before turning to face his teammates again. What do you expect? He despises us. Are you all seriously going to overlook this? Red was the first to react, then followed behind his teammate as they both entered their Dragon Force mode, blazing their magical power around their bodies. Oi oi, are we seriously going to do this? Orga asked. As other Sabretooth members considered their next moves, Sting let Naruto pass and threw a punch at his face, only for the blonde to catch it in his hand, before sending an even stronger hook right into the White Dragon Slayer's cheek, knocking him out. The rogue turned into a shadow and tried to help his comrade, but before he could get behind Naruto, the immortal shinobi's shadow spread and rose from the ground, wrapping itself around the rogue's body like a rope before launching him through the building. As he tried to get up, the shadow then transformed into a hand and wrapped it around the black-haired Dragon Slayer's neck, choking him with its strength. Gritting his teeth, Sting pulled back his head and gathered his magical energy in his mouth to unleash a tornado of holy light at Naruto, aimed at his face. Faster than light, Naruto jerked his head out of the way and raised his right leg, slamming his foot into Sting's face. The force of his kick shattered the dragon scales above his cheeks before the White Dragon Slayer rocketed off, flying over the walls of Saffron Garden before crashing through several houses in front of the place, disappearing under a pile of bricks as the last house collapsed and fell on top of him. I guess we have no choice, Rufa said as he placed his fingers on his temples, casting his magic, Moyuru Daichi no Virginia, remember. Karma of the burning earth. He declared and touched the ground with his hand, setting it ablaze. Great and fierce flashes, which grew larger and larger as they traveled farther from him, were directed at Naruto below. 120mm Kakurehu. Orga declared as he placed his partially open palms horizontally from his body, causing tiny sparks of black lightning to generate between his hands, before growing larger and larger in semicircles, until an electric projectile was ignited from his center towards Naruto, who showed no hint of nervousness, even as two powerful techniques made their way towards him. As the black lightning projectile drew closer, Naruto raised his hand and gathered the concentrated high-intensity light into it, producing a sound like many birds chirping before slashing his hand vertically, as Orga's attack came right in front of him, completely neutralizing it. When the magic dissipated, Naruto lifted his right foot and then stomped it hard into the ground, swirling the area around him into molten lava, which completely overwhelmed Rufus of Burning Earth's karma before spreading in every direction, engulfing every mage who couldn't escape and scorching their clothes and even limbs with fire. Not even Rufus and Orga, who was too stunned to even utter a word, were spared its power. In the next moment, the entire building collapsed around him, but Naruto easily dodged a falling debris and landed gracefully at his feet. Naruto. Then suddenly, the door was kicked open, or at least it was left open, and a group of people came into the room. Former Sabretooth mage Yukino was the first to enter, followed by Sayla, Urza, and the rest of Fairy Tail Team A, who were impressed to their hearts when they saw the scene, which had Naruto in the middle. Holy crap. Everyone back off. Natsu yelled as the heat of lava fell upon the ground. This was no normal heat, he could tell. The master. Sayla murmured in surprise as she looked at him. Naruto-sama, this is. Yukino gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. It took him a pretty long time, Naruto grumbled as he cancelled his technique, making the lava disappear. This is Urza then looked at him. Naruto. You've gone too far. This is for you, sensei, Urza, Naruto said, pointing his finger at her. And also, this is nothing. I'm actually holding back a lot, you know. Is this contained? The gray color asked in the crash, man, you've destroyed the entire block, look at the destruction outside. Well, I like what you're doing here, Naruto, can you save him tomorrow when it's legal? Natsu asked before noticing the glares he was receiving from his more responsible teammates. I mean this could start a guild war and get banned and… Naruto-sama, cuties. Before he could finish his sentence, Jima burst from the ground and blocked Naruto's path. Die, you prune. He then grabbed the blonde boy by the head and used his magic to unleash a powerful blast at Naruto. It was so large that it engulfed the blonde boy completely and swept away everything in its path, destroying several houses and other structures within 50 meters. Master? Sayla shouted and glared hatefully at Jima. You. Trash. Look at you, how you're everywhere outside a trash arc is out of me. But before she could make a move, Naruto's voice was heard from inside, then the smoke, which was clear a second later, revealing Naruto that he still didn't have a single scratch on his body. His clothes were slightly damaged, though you know that. Naruto shot at his staff and grabbed Jima's wrist so tightly he snapped it. I generally don't like to get involved in unnecessary business and will leave it to someone else to do for me. However, you and your guild have forced me to make an exception. He then raised his right hand. First, you humiliated Yukino in a way that is completely unacceptable. Even a callous bastard like me would never think of mocking a young girl in such a way, just because she is weak. You disgusted me, so I decided to teach you and your supposedly stronger guild a lesson. Naruto then created a normal ranked Rasengan in his hand, which was then surrounded by 3 smaller orbs of swirling chakra, in a manner similar to moons around a planet. And second, you, the person who is supposed to be the one guiding young people to greatness, Naruto raised Jima, who was struggling to break free, made you violate a rule that I still support my loved one to this day. This is something I cannot forgive. You, what are you? Jima said as he looked at Naruto. For the first time in his life, he felt fear. Who are you? Naruto Uzumaki, stop at this instant. Leiher and Durandbolt of the Magic Council appeared, bringing an entire platoon of guards with them. Don't do it. Durandbolt shouted and tried to stop him. But it was too late. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto said, and in that instant, everyone could only stare in horror as they saw a gigantic fox with 9 tails, excluding its fangs, eagerly taking down the saber-tooth guild master. And that's all you need to know. With that, he slammed planetary Rasengan into the big man's stomach, blasting him away through the city in a massive turbulent wave-like vortex, which caused the people around him to raise their weapons to protect their faces from the violent winds. The place fell silent afterward, too startled to utter a single word. The man, Leiher, suddenly broke the silence with a loud shout, "Bring this man in." The guards nodded nervously. Some of them could still remember how the Team Natsu members had reacted when they tried to take Jello Fernandez away. What? Yukino gasped. No, you can't, he's just. Like hell, we let him go. Natsu smiled openly and sadistically as he pierced his palm with a burning fist. You heard what the man said, he was just teaching Sabretooth a lesson and punishing them to humiliate Yukino. There's no reason for him to be taken away. Yes, the grey color said earnestly, and Lucy nodded her head in agreement. Here we go again, Urza grumbled. Being the reasonable member of the team, she decided to step forward and speak to the forward captain of the custodial execution unit. Can we talk about this? Stay back, it's all yours. However, Sayla was the first to take action. She stepped in front of her master and extended her hand forward. Watching her, some guards nervously stepped back. Master, allow me to. But before she could do anything, Naruto suddenly placed his hand on her shoulder and intervened in front of her. Master. Now, there's no need for you to intervene, Naruto said as his chakra level surged, causing a golden halo to appear around his body. I can take care of this myself. He said calmly, his eyes hardening, making the guards look at him even more nervously than before. Are you really going to do this? You all saw me handle 100 monsters this morning, right? What can 24 guys do? His power increased without limitation, causing the mages to stare at him in a daze and find it difficult for him to breathe normally. Naruto, you can. Alright, you guys got me. Then suddenly, the golden halo disappeared and Naruto declared with a laugh, clasping his hands together in front of him, take me to your prison then. BHHH. Yukino and Team Natsu could only stare at Naruto in shock. One moment he was more than ready to destroy them, the next he happily let them bring him into custody. But the master Sayla could only stare at him. She was shocked by his decision. You stay with Urza, for now, Sayla. Naruto said as he let Leiher cast a magic that sealed stone handcuffs on her wrists. Naruto Uzumaki, you are under arrest for attacking Sabretooth mages and destroying various structures in the Fiori capital, Leiher declared. Hey. What the hell, man, what are you doing? Natsu asked, crossing his weapons over his chest. Naruto-sama, what are you doing? Yukino stepped forward and asked. Don't worry, Yukino. I know what I'm doing. He said, giving her a quick wink before looking at the blue-haired dragon slayer. Wendy, you'll take my place on the team. I don't think they'll give me a test in this distribution gear. He then turned to Urza. Urza, I'll give you a few more hours to get the answer right for my test. Okay, sensei. Urza nodded slowly. She didn't know what else to say. Time to go, Uzumaki. Leiher said, and with that, Naruto was taken away. The next morning. Can you sign this for me? My daughter is your fan. Already? Naruto chuckled quietly as he moved his still cuffed hands between the bars of his prison and took the pen and photo from the guard watching over him. Here you go. He handed the signed photo back, smiled at the man, and nodded in approval. How old is she? She's 18. The guard replied with a shrug. You know, the hormonal teenager, going crazy over guys like you. Good luck, I've been there several times and examined them all. Naruto smiled contentedly, making the guard look at him curiously. What I'm trying to say is, teenage daughters, they can really be a pain someday. You're right. The guard nodded. Anyway, may I ask why? Before he could answer his question, the man yanked his head back and then smashed it against the iron grate of Naruto's prison, leaving him stunned. Meanwhile, Naruto wasn't surprised in the slightest. Master, here you are. The door was forced open and Sayla came into the filming. I'm not surprised to see you here, Sayla. I'm actually wondering what took you so long. Naruto said with a small, satisfied smile. Master, what are you doing? Why did you let them take him away? Why are you letting him be contained like a low-life human like this? She asked, throwing question after question at him. One question at a time, please. Naruto chuckled quietly and twisted his hand, breaking the handcuffs with ease. Didn't I already say you and each? I know what I'm doing. But. The guards will come through that door to take me to court in 4.5 minutes. If you decide to stay here longer than that, you'll have to fight your way out. Let them come. Sayla growled, I'll kill them all myself. Now, calm down, dear. You don't want to make your master even more worried, do you? He asked, causing Sayla to lower her face in embarrassment. Now, I have a few questions for you. Did you watch the third day of the Magnificent Magic Games this morning? Sayla nodded. Had she actually been forced to watch it because Naruto had told her to stay with Urza? Did the combined fairy teams really triumph? Unfortunately, Urza and her team didn't do well this morning. Natsu Dragneel took 6th place in the first game, the Chariot. Naruto had the urge to face the palm because just the name the Chariot hinted that this would include vehicles. Gajeel Red Fox of Team Fairy took 7th place, while Euclif Sting was last. How did 3 Dragon Slayers enter the game with the name the Chariot? Naruto asked in disbelief. Anyway, what was Sabretooth's team like? They were fine, just minor injuries here and there. However, I heard their master is still recovering in the hospital. Naruto nodded. Regarding the matchup. The battle between Wendy Marvel and Sherry Ablendi of Lamia Scale ended in a draw, master. Naruto nodded with a laugh. Laxus fought a member of Crow's Tail, who turned out to be the guild master. He also brought the entire team with him, but Laxus defeated them all. Crow's Tail had been disqualified from the tournament. Sayla finished. That's all, master. I see. Thank you for your effort, Sayla. Naruto laughed. Well, time is running out. You should leave, Sayla. Are you sure, master? The demon Aetherius asked uncertainly. I mean, I can make them. You're not the only one who can control other people. Naruto gave him a meaningful wink before adding, go to the bar where Fairy Tail usually hangs out and wait for me there, okay? Good, master. Sayla nodded her head, but before she could turn away, Naruto placed both hands on her cheeks and gently pulled her face toward him to capture her lips in a kiss. I'm going to see you later. After the restraint, he said with a laugh before summoning a new magic that sealed handcuffs to put him on his wrists. I will wait for you, my master. Sayla laughed, going downstairs and picking up the broken pieces of the Magic Council's handcuffs. Sayla left after this, and the Magic Council guards arrived shortly after, just a few seconds later. Line break. The once boisterous and cheerful guild was now shrouded in deathly silence and worry. Inside a famous bar in Fiore's capital, the fairy tale mages were all sitting in front of tables, heads resting on their hands or lying across them. Only a few spoke to one another, but what escaped their lips were mere whispers. For the first time in years, Fairy Tail, the guild that was said to be the loudest and most carefree, was silent. It wasn't because of today's outcome, but because of the absence of a certain Fairy Tail member, whom they had grown quite fond of. This is my flaw. Sitting with the members of Team Natsu, Yukino said how she tried to make herself as insignificant as possible. No, this isn't Yukino. Urza shook her head and said with a laugh. But it's because of me, Naruto-sama. He only did what everyone around here does, the Gray said as he crossed his weapons over his chest and put both feet on the table, treating his guildmate like that they can't really call themselves a guild, you know. I agree with him. Natsu nodded. Naruto only did what he believed was right. This has always been one of the most important rules of this guild, Makarov said with a small smile. So please, don't be so grumpy, huh? We'll all wait for Naruto-kun's return together. Mira said to Yukino with a hot laugh. Yukino wasn't quite convinced, but she nodded her head nonetheless. You're surprisingly calm, you know. Urza asked Sayla, who was sitting next to her with a blank face. I have no reason to address any of you, and I don't want to either. Sayla replied coldly, the master told me to wait here. He didn't tell me to address you. Damn that cold, the gray color commented as he looked at the black-haired demonstration. So much for her story. She glanced at Sayla, but a cold, demonic glare was more than enough to shut her out. Well, I'll abandon her then. The model laughed convincingly and stared away. Then, half an hour after this, the bar door was opened and Naruto Uzumaki stepped in with a huge laugh on his face. I'm back. He announced his strong return. The master, Sayla said with a small laugh before she stood up and ran to his side. Did I make him wait? Naruto asked. Certainly not, master, Sayla said, shaking her head. Naruto. Surprisingly, after Sayla, Murahin was the first person to greet him, followed by Yukino behind her. What was the test like? That went well, Naruto said with a smile. They let him have a free pass. Urza stood up from her seat and decided to ask. After you sent the Saber-Tooth Guild master and half of its members to the hospital. Can you tell us what happened, Naruto? Makarov asked curiously. Well, I slept through the entire test, so I can't remember what they were talking about. Naruto replied with a thoughtful expression, causing the guild members to look at him in disbelief. But I was pretty sure I didn't get a free pass. Well, to start, I have to pay Saber-Tooth 30 million jewels in compensation and 10 million jewels for the damage I caused around the city. 30 million jewels. The entire guild shouted in the clash, 40 million jewels. Well, it's nothing, I can't handle it. Naruto shrugged accidentally. I mean I own an island and a mountain, and I'm a rich bastard who doesn't know how to spend his money, so yeah, I'm sure I can handle that money. Seriously? Lucy asked, what else? Well, I've been banned from Fairy Tail Team A, and also banned from participating in the Grand Magic Games ever again. Naruto said with a nod of his head. But doesn't this seem like you guys need me to win or something? You're forcing me to participate in this event, for starters. The members of Team Natsu could only nod their heads in agreement. That's it. Man, this is really bad, Natsu commented. But it could have been worse, Lucy said. Dima is, above all, still alive, so apart from the guild's war laws, I didn't violate anything. Naruto said as he held his hands. So good luck to you brats now. I'm out. It's too bad then. Mira said with a nod of her head. So please drink, eat, have fun, do whatever you want to do to lift your spirits. You guys still have 2 days to prove yourselves. The immortal shinobi said as he waved his hands dismissively at the Fairy Tail members before turning back to Yukino. May I speak to you for a second? Me? Yukino asked, pointing at her. Yes, you. Naruto nodded and turned to Sayla. Sayla, please wait here. The demonstrator nodded, but immediately cursed in displeasure after her master had looked away and gone on guild strike with Yukino. Line break. Naruto-sama, yo. You're welcome, Naruto said, smiling broadly. The two had taken their seats on a bench facing the river outside the bar, with Naruto being more comfortable than Yukino, who tried to sit as far away from him as possible. You want to thank me, right? Please say you want to thank me. I do. Yukino nodded her head. It's just. Is it just what? Why, Naruto-sama? Am I just an outsider, so why have you been only ever with me? Didn't I explain my reasons last night? He answered with his own question. But. You know, sometimes you don't really need a reason to want to do something, he said, leaning his head back. You want to do it, so you do it. Have confidence in yourself and do what you want to do. He would never say this, but Yukino remembered it from someone he used to know and loved with all his heart. I see that. Yukino nodded her head with a small laugh. May I ask you something, Naruto-sama? Continue. What was that rule? She asked. The rule that you said Jima-sama made everyone violate. Okay, if my memory serves me right, then this continues like this. He began, those who break the rule are thrown out, but those who abandon their friends are worse than. But he was interrupted when Yukino leaned forward and placed her lips on his cheek, kissing him gently. After 2 seconds, she withdrew, blushing slightly. Thank you, Naruto-sama. She said with a laugh. Thank you for everything. Heh. Naruto smiled broadly. So, what are you going to do now, Yukino? I don't know, Naruto-sama. Yukino shook her head. It's just she sighed anxiously. Why don't you join the fairy tale? He asked, making Yukino's eyes widen in surprise. Yukino said, but Naruto-sama, your guild is so strong, I'm not sure I can. Meh, aren't we currently the lowest ranking group in Fiori? Naruto asked. You'll be fine, don't worry about it. I don't think Makarov is too picky about new members. He looked her up and down. And with that kind of body, I doubt he'd disapprove of you joining us. It's that so Yukino nodded her head slowly. Come on. Naruto said as he stood up from the bench. You're going to get him a guild sign, right? Yes. She stood up and followed him. But did Naruto-sama really let the Magic Council have a free pass just like this? Of course, why not them? Naruto smiled mysteriously with satisfaction and walked away. Before that day. Naruto Uzumaki stepped forward. The man who stood in the middle of the court spoke loudly. I'm here, Naruto said accidentally as he walked forward and stood in front of the Magic Council members. Naruto Uzumaki, you are. Can I have your attention, please? Naruto suddenly interrupted and spoke loudly, making the old mages look at him strangely. Well, now he dropped his hands to the side, breaking the handcuffs in the process. Before any of them could react, he continued, I don't have all day, so please, can you make this easy for me and look me in the eyes? After this, he freely controlled them, however he wanted to. End of chapter 13. Chapter 14. Here you go. Naruto said intensely as he handed Minerva the Orlando, Jima's daughter. Jima was the master of the Sabertooth Guild, and the old man Naruto beat so badly, and without an ounce of respect for the old man, that he had to stay in the hospital and receive magical medical treatments for a few days before returning to his feet, a couple of suitcases. 30 million jewels. Await you. Don't take it too hard. Naruto continued as he looked at the people standing behind her. The entire team was present and they looked at Naruto warily, as all four of them had been completely destroyed by him that night, unlike their leader, who watched and laughed at him. Don't worry, Minerva said as she accepted the blonde man's suitcase. He really deserved this, she said, looking at Yukino. The former Sabertooth member nervously watched her old teammate standing beside Sayla, who glared at the Sabertooth mages, as if daring them to try something funny with her master. I'm guessing he's an even worse father, right? Naruto asked playfully before adding when he saw her open her lips to reply, you don't have to answer that. This isn't my place to interfere in your family business. That's fine. He's never been a real father to me anyway. I must admit, I was quite pleased to see you busting him by 12 blocks last night. Minerva laughed as she placed a hand on her hip. You've ended my father's reign of terror, and by your logic, Sabertooth has no need of a loser. Ah, so you intend to kick him out because he got beaten up by me? What are you going to do next? Take his place and act like the new guild master? Then what will you do? Naruto asked with a small, smug smile, and continued before she could say anything, kick him out. Kick those guys standing behind you out. Kick every single one of them out. Naruto asked, his expression darkening slightly. Last time I checked, I beat the crap out of every one of them. I didn't do anything to him, but I could have detonated those explosive tags. Wouldn't that make him a loser? What are you trying to imply, Yuzu? I'm not trying to imply anything, it's just that I hope you don't take your father's logic and make it your own. Girl, I can read you like an open book. I know exactly what you're trying to do next. He shrugged with a laugh. My only advice to you. Well. You are your father's daughter, but don't become someone like him and fall into his footsteps. As you said, I've ended little Jimmy's reign of terror within Sabertooth, so I think you really should consider that a new beginning for you and everyone else. He gave her a smile before turning and walking away. So look around, guys, tigers. When he was standing next to Yukino, he turned back and placed a hand on the celestial mage's head, making her blush slightly. Also, Yukino belongs to the fairy tale. You want her back? Fine, figure it out then, I'm not worried. He laughed quietly. Sayla, we're leaving. Yes, master. The demon nodded and ran to her side. As the fairy tale members followed, Yukino suddenly stopped and turned to bow her head to her former teammates, saying apologetically. I hope we'll see each other again. With that, she followed her new guild, leaving the area. What an interesting guy. After a moment of silence, Minerva finally said with an amused laugh and left with her teammates. What he said to her, it really wasn't so bad. The man, should he really be giving away that much money? Natsu asked as he looked at Naruto. Personally, he had never seen that much money in his life. A Class S mage could make a lot of money with just one mission, but it would take them no less than a couple dozen to make that much. Where did you get all that money anyway? Well, I'm a rider. When he noticed the way they were looking at him, he added, I'm serious. I'm so surprised, Yukino said with a laugh. He really didn't look like a rider to her. I'm sure you are and will be continuously if you start circling me. Naruto laughed quietly. Are you a rider too? Lucy managed to ask. Now that he had revealed it, it had become clear to her, as Lucy had always wondered, why he could give her so many amazing writing tips for her novels. But I've read many best-selling books in the past 20 years and I've never found your name on any of them. Lucy, here's another lesson you have to learn to become a successful writer. Never use your real name. You have to come up with something good, something different, and something eye-catching, like Natsu the donkey, the grey color erotic bookmark or something along those lines. He joked, causing both the aforementioned Dragon Slayer and Ice Mage to become furious. This is just a hobby, really. I find something interesting, get some inspiration, jot it down, make a couple of books, and publish them. Boom, I make a lot of money. If only it were easy for me, Lucy said, laughing nervously behind her back. So, can you tell me the names of those books? Urza asked. I'd like to read them if you don't mind. Nah, this is for you to understand. Naruto said thoughtfully before adding, the rhetoric of which I think we've spent enough time already. This is the time you give me the answer, Urza. He turned and gave the red-haired mage a laugh. Go ahead and just exclude first, please. Urza asked, laughing nervously. Line break. Now remember, answer wrong and the punishment is the same, you have to. They grab their immediate ramen. Naruto asked in the entertainment as he looked at the bag on the table. They were back in the usual growing guild place, and almost everyone was present, even the spirit of Fairy Tail's first guild master, Mavis Vermilion. The blonde often made herself comfortable on the seat behind Naruto, close to Sayla, who couldn't see her. Just in case you decide to, Urza said, laughing nervously but hollowly, causing her teammates and everyone else in the Fairy Tail to look at her questioningly, wondering what punishment could possibly make Titania so nervous. So instead of spending your time figuring out the correct answer to safely sit there in front of me, you actually spent a single second thinking about this. Do you take this seriously? He asked sternly, making Urza look even more flustered. I'm just mocking you. Go see what you've got here. Naruto reached for his serving dish and grabbed it from behind before Urza, who looked relieved, could take it away. Ah yes, miso ramen, Ichiran ramen, the beef and chicken seasoned ramen. Damn, that must have cost a fortune. He said after examining each cup of instant ramen. I think I'll take this as payment for your education. Urza looked like a rock had just fallen on the top of her head. Sayla, would you mind keeping this for me? Certainly not, master, Sayla said, accepting the bag from her master's hands with a shake of her head. But I don't have yet. If you want to bribe me, you'll have to make better than instant ramen. I like whole ramen, but I like handmade ramen best, especially good ones. He turned to Mira and winked at her, making her laugh in response. Anyway, go hear your answer. Hey, shut up for a second, are you going to? He spoke up loudly and the bar fell silent. Even if they didn't, Sayla would surely use her power to make them. She was more than ready to do this to stop them from staring at her. Urza cleared her throat before summoning her notebook with her magic. Actually, I'm torn between two answers. At first, I thought this was a teleportation technique because you could move between different positions in an instant, and I guess this had something to do with your kunai, those with 3 blades. If it wasn't, then he would never have thrown those kunai and used them to fight. You threw the kunai and then disappeared, but you reappeared in your positions, leading me to believe that the kunai served as markers for your teleportation ability. Naruto nodded, but kept his face straight. However, there was a time I saw you flash away in positions that didn't have any kunai, and you still hadn't thrown any of them, to begin with. Urza sighed before continuing, so, unless you're as fast as light, the Flying Thunder God technique allows you to instantly teleport to a previously marked position, and the marker. That will be his kunai. Stupid, he's not as fast as the speed of light, he's faster, Sayla muttered under her breath, but Naruto and Mavis were the only people who could hear her. You know what? Urza caught her breath, waiting for Naruto. You're right, Hiraishin is a teleportation technique. Urza's lips stretched into a huge laugh as he followed, summoning a kunai from her joke dimension and placing it on the table between them. To be more specific, it's a space-time ninjutsu, involving the manipulation of time and space. Urza looked at the kunai as Naruto pointed his hand to the handle. Look, this is the technique's formula. This is used to mark an intended position. After the system is made, I can at will enter a dimensional void that instantly transports me to the seal position. The more seals I have, the more positions I can choose to appear from. Man, this is some mastered technique you have there, man, Gray commented, and the others nodded their heads in agreement. Ninjas are so cool, Natsu said with a face-splitting grin. That's what I'm talking about, Naruto said, smiling broadly and smugly. This makes us the shinobi way, the refrigerator you mag, don't you think? I have to disagree. Makarov chuckled quietly as he drank his beer. More powerful, perhaps, but the refrigerator. He shrugged, and many members of his guild, even Urza, nodded in agreement. Can I ask you a question? Naruto nodded and gestured for her to continue with his hand. Did Minato-sensei believe it? Actually, he perfected the technique, Naruto replied. The technique was created by Tobirama Senju, who was my godmother's great-uncle. Ah, okay. Urza nodded before she decided to ask, but as for. Before she could finish her question, Naruto placed his hand on the table. Actually, I don't need the kunai to do that, Urza. This is just a more convenient way to use this technique. He then withdrew his hand, revealing a Hiraishin formula. The signal can be applied to almost any area through physical contact. In fact, if Urza could maintain her speed during the chaos, she would see that he hadn't placed the markers anyway and moved with a speed that could easily match the Flying Thunder God technique. Ah, I see, I understand now. Urza nodded her head, laughing at him. Master? Before Naruto could say anything, Sayla called to him in a low tone and tugged on the flap of his jacket to get his attention. Can I ask you something? Go on. Should she let these people know about her abilities? Urza, I can understand, but. They know, so what? He replied with a laugh. It's not like they can do anything to me, especially since I don't even need Flying Thunder God technique to run around at light speed yet. You of all people should know this. Sayla nodded her head in understanding. Anyway, Urza, you have very good observation skills. You passed the test. That's all I can tell you for now. Naruto spoke over, turning back to Urza and laughing at her. We'll resume your education when the Grand Magic Games are over. He then glanced to the side when he noticed Mavis looking at him with a laugh. What? His question, while the fairy tale members didn't think anything about it, made Sayla look between him and the empty chair in confusion for a moment before her eyes widened in realization. He must be addressing Mavis Vermilion, she thought. It's nothing, Mavis said with a soft laugh and turned away, making Naruto click his tongue and glare at her in annoyance, because he knew exactly what she was thinking. Ahem, anyway. The third master put down his drink and stood up, speaking loudly to get everyone's attention. There's another matter we need to discuss. Since the Raven's Tail has been banned from the Grand Magical Game by the Magical Council, he said with a satisfied smile, the rest make the tournament quite unbalanced. So they've requested that we each choose 5 members from both of our teams and form one team to participate in the remainder of the tournament. Of course, our position will be Team A, since they're in the lead. But this, we'll be able to form our dream team, Mikao said with a laugh, his adopted son nodding in agreement. But who should we choose? Nab asked curiously, looking at the old master. I want Naruto on our team as the leader, but he's already banned from the tournament. Makarov said as he crossed his weapons over his chest and tilted his head to the side. Then I guess the best options are. It's obviously Urza, Natsu, Gray, Laxus, and Gagiel on the team, with Juvia as their reserve member. Naruto spoke over, but glanced at Mavis when he heard her say the same thing. Not exactly what I had in mind, but not bad. Makarov nodded. But may I ask why you two chose this formation? Isn't Mira a better choice than Juvia? Even the water woman had to admit that Mira was an extremely powerful S-class mage. Juvia is on the team because she can work well with the Grey One around, Naruto explained, causing the Grey One to cross his weapons in annoyance and Juvia to squeal out in pleasure and agreement. You should never underestimate the power of love. With the right motivations, Juvia can become as strong as, if not stronger than Mira. He then continued, since you're all from legal guilds, this tournament seems like a good place to settle your differences, so unless you want them to end up like me, why not let Natsu, the Grey One, and Gagiel participate in the tournament since they all have plenty to settle with their respective opponents. Naruto explained. The same can be said for Urza. Furthermore, I want her there to be a responsible and reasonable leader of the team. Laxus, well, he's there because he's strong. I can't even explain it any better, Mavis said with a laugh, and the fairy tale wizards nodded their heads in understanding. Then this is set. Urza, Natsu, the Grey One, Gagiel, and Laxus, with Juvia as our reserve member, will represent us and participate in the tournament. He declared, causing everyone to cheer with excitement. Yosh. I'm all fired up. Natsu said, grinning openly and sadistically as he thought, I'm going to kick the asses of that Sting and the scoundrel. Excuse me, those bastards. I'm going to kick all their pathetic asses. This is the spirit, Naruto said mockingly, nodding his head at the first guild master. Mavis will provide you with the necessary strategies. Your guild's reputation is in your hands now. Don't ask me to help you more than this, as I've been banned, he then added with a satisfied smile, and don't want to. Seriously, can you be honest with yourself for once? Mira asked, laughing at the amusement. I don't think I understand what you're trying to imply, Mira. Don't worry, I know who you are. The demon replied cheerfully. Hey. Naruto, can I ask you something? Wakaba spoke up, inhaling the smoke from his mouth. When Naruto nodded in approval, he asked, where did you find such a hot eye? Man, she might even be hotter than our very own demon Mira. It took Sayla several seconds to realize he was talking about her, and when she did, she turned to the brown-haired man and glared at him coldly, causing Wakaba and the veteran mages loitering around him to look away uncomfortably and start sweating nervously. I met her a few years ago, Naruto said. It wasn't a lie. He was immortal. 400 years was just a few years to him. She's been sticking with me ever since. He'd said the same thing to Urza, and luckily, she bought it without a second thought. This is a hell of a way to summarize a story in a man of pronouncements. Simplification isn't the best way to study, never forget that. Naruto gave a quick wink with his right eye before standing up. I think I should get my leave now. Where are you going? Mavis asked. My home, I'm going back to my peaceful life. You've all been keeping me safe here for quite a long time. He turned and walked to the door, with Sayla following closely behind him. Don't worry. I should see you there tomorrow. With that, they both left. Hayes, I don't think the demon girl like us is very much like that, Wakaba said, reminding them of the way Sayla had looked at them. Man, I should have expected there wasn't a demon like our Mira. He laughed quietly and picked up his cup, but before he could drink it, Wakaba suddenly splashed the beer all over his own face, before smashing himself across the face with the empty cup, calling himself out of his chair. The man from hell. Mikao asked in the shock, while the fairy tale wizard stared at him with the same expression. What's wrong with you? I don't know, my body just kept going on its own. The injured man said, checking his bloody face. Wendy, can you do anything? Line break. Ah, some candy home. Naruto said loudly in satisfaction as he opened his front door and walked in. If I could forget this place in a few decades, he muttered the last tense, just for himself. You seem very happy, master, Sayla said with a laugh before the request, as they made their way into the living room. May I ask why? Isn't it obvious? Naruto grinned broadly as he threw himself onto the couch, leaning his head back with a laugh. I managed to fight the monsters that didn't run away the moment they saw me, beat the crap out of some asses last night, screwed over the entire Magic Council this morning, and I manipulated them into giving a pretty good excuse to get out of this tournament. He reached out his weapons and wrapped them around Sayla's waist, pulling her towards him and letting her sit on his lap before placing his hand on her thigh. Now, I'm home with the most beautiful, most amazing girl in the world and some really expensive instant ramen for dinner. They both chuckled softly as he picked up the bag Sayla set the table. So you can tell me one good reason I shouldn't be happy. I don't think there is a master. Sayla laughed, shaking her head before gently kissing his lips. Naruto laughed and returned the kiss, closing his eyes so he could savor her sensitive lips more. His hand reached under the skirt of her kimono and groped her clit, eliciting a moan in response. After a moment, Naruto broke the kiss, laughing at Sayla as she wrapped her arms around his neck. I'll heat some water for you now, master, Sayla said. Her cooking couldn't do it, but instant ramen was something she could cook in a flash. However, before she could go anywhere, Naruto suddenly grabbed her by the back of her neck and bent her shoulders down onto the table in front of them, making Sayla gasp in surprise and forcing her to put her arm on the surface to support her body and her legs on his hips. Before she could say anything, Naruto lifted the skirt of her kimono above her, exposing her ass and hussy, and pulled down her panties before delivering a hard smack across her right cheek with his right hand. The master of M. Despite the feeling of connection due to the position she had been put in, Sayla couldn't help but turn her head and ask him, because she had no idea what he was planning to do. Now, before you can get all worked up, there's something we need to talk about, Naruto said, with a sly, smug grin. Do you remember what I told you before I let the Magic Council guards take me away? Staying with Urza. He reminded her, rubbing his hand across her supple donkey-like cheek. Yet you chose not to listen to me and went after your master, thinking this was the right thing to do. You, my dear, have gone against your master's wishes. You must be punished, he said, whipping her again. And as a strict master, I will punish you myself. He raised his hand and smacked her donkey-like cheek for the third time. Suddenly, Sayla blushed and moaned in response, making the smug grin on his face widen as she clapped her hands over her mouth to stop it from escaping. What's that moaning I hear? That's not Mater, The demon Aetherius gasped as Naruto gave his ass another hard break. Now, don't lie to your master. He said, his hand trailing down the curve of his donkey, making the demonic shudder as his finger brushed against her femininity. Well, what do we have here? Naruto took his hand back and looked at his fingers, which had Sayla's juice on them. What a nutty demon you are. He remarked before placing both hands on his donkey. Good. I'm going to punish you, Sayla, for going against my order and for lying to me. I will whip you 20 times, 10 on each side, and I want you to count every time. If you miss a count, I will whip you twice as hard and 3 times as hard, understood? Yes, master, Sayla fluttered, her eyes following the movement of his hand as he lifted it into the air beside his palm facing forward. The action of smiling openly, he brought his hand to bear, whipping her right and hard enough to make her sway. 1, master. Before she could even finish the word master, he had already delivered another with the same amount of force. 2. She didn't whimper out, but tried to hide her arousal. 3. She counted when Naruto slapped her butt with his other hand. 4. She shuddered as Naruto continued to whip her. This is 10 years old, my dear, plus 10 to go. Naruto said with satisfaction as he looked at her red ass-like cheeks. Because of her demon skin, he had to whip her quite hard to send a fully cultivated man flying through space. Even for an Aetherius, Sayla's durability and stamina were something one could take lightly. To answer her words, the demon simply wiggled her ass as she ground harder in Naruto's lap. Naruto continued, and he had to admit that he liked what he was doing. Not that he was stingy. This was the first time they had done this, but it was also the first time in 400 years that he had taken on the role of a master. He had always liked how submissive she was to him, but he had never considered Sayla his servant, nor had he ever wanted her to see him as her master. 10, master. Sayla screamed and fell onto the table, trying to catch her breath. There's no time for you to rest, Sayla. I know this is going to take a lot more than just getting you down, Naruto said, releasing his grip on her body. Now, stand up. As if she had been controlled by her own curse, Sayla stood up and turned, standing in front of him. The ribbon. Laughing, Sayla reached behind her back and untied the ribbon that held her kimono together. Returning her hands to the front, Sayla slowly opened the front of her kimono and let it fall to the floor, leaving only her thigh-high stockings on her body as she stood naked before him. The good girl. Naruto smiled contentedly, leaning back against the back of his chair. Now dance. Sayla looked at him for a second, but Naruto quickly added with a smirk, just kidding, I know you can't dance. I can order myself, master. She said, laughing at him. I know you can, but we'll have time for this later, Naruto said. I'm going to need you to let your imagination run wild afterward. I think you know where to. With a nod of his head, Sayla used her spelling to remove his gasp, knocking him down to her ankles and freeing his semi-hard cock. Picking this up and laying it on the ground beside him, Naruto opened his guns. Now come here. He did as he was told, Sayla climbing onto the bed and straddling his lap again. However, before she sat down, Sayla took his cock from his hand and placed it at the entrance to her pussy. Holding her by her hips, Naruto watched as Sayla lowered her body, taking his cock into her pussy. The master. Taking off his shirt, Sayla moaned and began bouncing up and down on Naruto's lap, riding his cock with enthusiasm. Then she stopped bouncing and began rolling her hips on his lap, moaning as his cock rubbed every sweet spot inside her for a moment before leaning forward and kissing him passionately. From her hips, Naruto slid his hands over her waist and stood on her breasts, feeling them jiggling in his palms as he rubbed them together, using his thumb to tease her nipples. Still teasing her, Naruto moved his hips in sync with Sayla, thrusting his cock into her thighs. They both groaned loudly as Naruto continued thrusting into her, squeezing her breasts with Sayla's cock as he came multiple times. Sayla whimpered and leaned her head back as Naruto kissed his way down her neck and rested his face between her large beautiful breasts, greedily tasting her soft flesh and sucking on her nipples, earning a moan of approval from her in response. The two remained like that for a moment until Naruto felt her hussy tighten around his cock, bringing him to his limit. Slamming his ass down her lap, Naruto exploded inside her, filling her womb with his sperm. Sayla caught her breath as she fell forward and rested her head on his shoulder, her breasts pressed together. Laughing, Naruto moved her down to his ass and lifted her on top of him, causing his semen and juice to come running down to the point between her thighs, before Sayla forced her lips close to keep his seeds inside. I hope you've learned your lesson, Sayla. Yes, master the retention, Sayla nodded her head with a small laugh before pressing her lips against his, allowing him to capture her mouth in another scorching kiss. I've learned my lesson, she said after breaking her tongue herself. What do you want me to do next, master? She asked, laughing seductively. Naruto simply smiled with satisfaction. End of chapter 14. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.